2nd, 2026. We are meeting at the Montana School for the Deaf and Blind in Great Falls. And due to technical difficulties with the internet, we are streaming with audio only again today. We'll begin with our Pledge of Allegiance led by MSDB students.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And so I want to introduce Sarah. Sarah's going to interpret for me, so I don't have to try and do two things at one time. So I want to introduce you a group of our upper elementary and middle school students who are here with Ms. Prefontaine, who was an interpreter for us last year and has just finished, graduated with her TOD teaching degree. So she's been teaching for us this year. Amazing teacher, and she does many hats. Interpreter teacher, and also teaches with our with Mrs. Jones, who you saw yesterday, with our music. So they've come to perform a song for you, and unlike yesterday, I have my kids here today. So I'm super excited. So I'll let Ms. Prefontaine take over.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cecilia Prefontaine, and this is my sign name. I am a new teacher here at MSDB. Like Alt mentioned before, last year I worked also as an interpreter. So I met some of these students working last year as an interpreter, and now I'm their teacher. What a wonderful experience. And I've enjoyed it very much ever since. Most of the time I teach English, both high school and elementary school level, and even some middle schools, you know, the whole spectrum. And it's very fun. And this afternoon, we have a fun because every day I get to teach music class and art class in the afternoon. So we switch off periods. So I really enjoy working with this group of students. They are amazing. And I'm so proud of how much they've grown this year, how much they've improved, their maturity level, their responsibility levels, and even their signing has greatly improved. So we hope that you enjoy their performance today. Thank you so much. I'm gonna go ahead and set up myself and the music. Just a second. It's okay. I think I was so good.
Has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. Oh, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. So don't stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. If the sky that we look upon should tumble and fall, or the mountain should crumble to the sea, I won't cry. Shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. And God, stand by me. Stand by me. Oh, stand now. Stand by me. Stand by me. By me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me.
Thank you, thank you.
We did, we were so hard. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Chris, will you please call the roll?
Board Member Maxwell.
Here.
Board Member Rasmussen.
Present.
Board Member Schmidt.
Here.
Board Member Neeskens.
Here.
Board Member Mills.
Here.
Vice Chair Slinger.
Here.
Chair Tharp.
Here.
Student Representative Comstock. Here. Commissioner Christian's office.
Online, can you hear us, Dr. McLean? We see you nodding, we can't hear you though. Your lips moving, okay, we know you're here, we'll work on that.
Governor Jane Forte's office.
Absent.
And Superintendent Headland's office.
Here.
Board of Public Education encourages the public to participate in board discussions. Persons who wish to participate should sign the public comment sign-in sheet and identify themselves to the board chair or executive director prior to the board's consideration of the matter in which the persons are concerned. Anyone wishing to participate in board discussions will be recognized by the chair in keeping with normal board parliamentary procedure. We discourage public comment on personnel matters and ask that you discuss these issues in private with the board chair. Montana Board of Public Education is a professional development unit provider. Attending a Board of Public Education meeting may qualify you to receive professional development units. Please complete the necessary information on the sign-in sheet if you are applying for professional development units. That's it. Do we have any visitors who'd like to be recognized?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jane Weber and I am a legislator in the House and I represent House District 19, which is downtown Great Falls. So it's my privilege to be here. I'm sorry I missed yesterday. I was very involved with Meals on Wheels and other things during the day. So thank you.
We will commence with our agenda and starting with item number 18, action on the K-12 school payment schedule. Oh,
We don't have a lot of it.
no, so we have Autumn.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Autumn Warren. I'm the school finance manager with the Office of Public Instruction. I'm here today to present our proposed payment schedule for fiscal year 2027. Nothing has changed that needs to be noticed, other than a name change for the county guaranteed tax base aid for the general fund payment. Because of possible 156, otherwise just a few date changes to get them in line with the calendar.
Same question I've been asking for the last 10 years, when I was at the OPI and then here and everything, bounces off of Masbo.
I'm not sure if we have this year. But I'm more than happy to. I can send Shelley an email today.
Okay, And then I know it's not part of this, the K-12 payment schedule, but where are we with training and helping folks with the countywide levy?
I'm giving 3 trainings at Masbo at the summer conference, about, they're a mix between the stars and, what districts can expect with their information for the countywide levy. And then I gave a presentation to the county superintendents in April in Miles City, and I'm doing another one in September in Miles City for the treasurers.
Is there any of those that are recorded?
We do have at least one recorded training that's kind of broad on the website for House Bill 156. And I have a feeling we'll do another so that schools can go back and watch it while they're doing their budget this year, so they know what to expect. But I think that's all we have planned right now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was unable to make it to the county soup conference, so I know I'm gonna have some here.
The presentation is up there. It's just not a recorded training, but the presentation I did at the county soups conference is on the website.
Okay, very good. Anybody have any questions on the proposed payment schedule? Okay, entertain a motion to approve the K-12 school payment schedule as presented by the OPI.
So moved.
Your second?
I'll second it.
Any additional questions or discussion from the board? Any public comment? Public comment online? Okay, then we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of approving the K-12 school payment schedule as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Hey, thank you, Autumn. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, our next items are a couple of from the charter school committee, so I'll hand things over to Chair Schmidt.
Our first item is the update on Community Choice Schools Commission. Is Kathy online? Kathy, would you like to? Good morning.
Good morning.
What do you
Yes.
have for us?
I today have for you going to just walk you through our performance framework. So it is on page 273 of your packet. And the performance framework is kind of the guiding document for measuring the progress of community choice schools. So it encompasses all the academic, operational, financial measures. And it's used for 2 purposes. One, for gauging whether or not a school is ready for renewal in year 4, and also for measuring annual performance in the school's annual report. So this document largely guides not only the work of the commission, but the school's authorizing board and the school's governing board. The commission is the authorizer, and then also the school founder. So I just want to walk you through that document and take a look at some of the measures that we put together. I'll just kind of keep it high level to the most part, other than a couple areas where we'll drill in. So on that first page there, you see the Commission's guiding principles. So we like to remember our intent and the common principles that we came together to prioritize before we make any big decisions. So that's why they are included there. And then on the next page, page 274, the policy is outlined from the Community Choice Schools Act. And then underneath there, that chart that has the blue in it, those are all of the elements that are in the performance framework. So we have 5 elements that we are measuring. One is mission-driven measures, second, academic, school environment or cultural measures, operational measures, and financial measures. And underneath each of those is basically a driving question. So under mission-driven measures, we're looking to determine if the school is delivering on its promise. So this is the area where the school would include mission-specific goals and targets to ensure that the mission that they outlined in their application is actually being implemented in the school, and they have a means to measure the effectiveness of that. Second is academic measures. Is the school in academic success? Pretty straightforward here with proficiency in growth in literacy and mathematics. We'll dig into some of the nuances of that a little bit here. And then school environment measures. Is the school a safe and welcoming environment conducive to learning? So there we're looking at the 4 measures there: attendance, recurrent enrollment, staff retention, and school and community engagement. And then next, operational. So basically that's just looking at the governance measures and the school operational compliance to ensure that the school is an effective and viable organization. And then finally, financial measures. Is the school fiscally sound? And we have both near-term and long-term measures there that the governing board and the authorizing commission will use to determine the fiscal stability of the school. If you want to scroll down next to page 275 or turn to 275, you'll see this is section 1 for those mission-driven measures, and you'll see it's all blank because this is actually going to be developed with the school in the contracting process. So the school will come to the authorizing commission with some goals drafted and collaborate with the commission to refine those goals to ensure that they're measuring their mission, and then each of those performance indicators of the 4 different levels there will be filled in at that time. Next section there on the next page, section 2, academic measures. I do want to spend just a minute on this. So the Community Choice Schools Act calls for schools to be measured both in proficiency and growth. So the commission, gosh, I think we started with them last November. We put out an RFP with the procurement process for an assessment contractor to help make recommendations for some assessments that the schools could use that would meet the intent of the law and make sure that the school has an assessment that's measuring the items that are required in the performance framework. So as you may recall, the community choice charter schools have freedom from the state assessment, so they're free to choose any assessment that they wish. And the commission felt like making a few recommendations may be helpful to the school leaders. So we worked with a consultant group and they identified 4 different assessments, one being the MAST, so the current Montana assessment. Second recommendation was the NWEA Measures of Academic Progress, or the MAP test. The third was the iReady assessments, and then finally the ACT suite for high school students. So in working under the parameters of those exams, because they all, well, other than MAST currently, measure proficiency and growth for subgroups and meet all the requirements of the Community Choice Schools Act. And then essentially what this group did for us then was plug in what the performance measures should be. So first there, we're looking at proficiency for literacy and mathematics, and you see the percentile ranks there. So the school's proficiency rate is at or above 65%, being exceeds, and so on for the meets, approaches, and does not meet. And that is, again, overall proficiency with that 50th percentile being the portion of students who score. If a student is at the 50th, 50% of the students score higher, 50% score lower. So that's a percentile rank. And you can see there on the meets, we're between 45 and 64. So that falls within that, general gauge of, proficiency compared to students across the nation. Then I want to look at growth. Growth can get a little complicated. There's lots of assessment experience, but it's always a little difficult to grasp. So you'll see there we have 2 different columns there for students meeting achievement benchmarks and then students who are not meeting achievement benchmarks. And with growth, students that are meeting benchmarks, they just need to continue to grow over the years, right? So they have much smaller increments of growth. So you see that reflected in those measures there as far as meets, exceeds, approaches, and does not meet. But the students who are not at proficiency benchmarks, so they're like less than the 50th percentile, they need to grow more in order to catch up to the expectations for learning at their grade level. So 2 different measures there, and then you see the special populations. So we're looking at closing achievement gaps then with like students with special needs, free and reduced lunch, any different English language learners or American Indian or other ethnic group students. So all of those measures captured in there, and I'm happy to answer any more questions about that because I know that especially can get a little confusing. But just scrolling down for the rest of this here, I'll just kind of highlight some things. So Assessment participation, pretty straightforward, post-secondary readiness, a common measure already used. School environment. So this, is a pretty important piece, especially for as you're creating a new school, you have an opportunity to create the culture that goes with that school. So we wanted to be sure that we had some measures in there that gauge, student satisfaction, maybe without the ambiguity of the survey, parent satisfaction. And we feel like those are captured in the measures that we have added in here, especially that school and community engagement one, which gives us some definite measures of making sure that the family and the student and the staff voice are in decision making, and that proper relationships are established within the community as well to ensure that they are connecting with the school. And then the last two sections there, operational measures, has a lot of the board governance. So that would be the overseeing board of the school, and typical operation measures, and then the financial, pretty straightforward as well, with just near-term and short-term sustainable health. Any questions?
Any questions from board members?
Kathy, this is Hannah Neeskins. Have you selected an assessment, or are you giving schools the choice to pick from the 4 that you listed, or how is that working?
Yes, thank you, Chair Schmidt and Member Neeskins. So the commission has recommended 4 assessments, and the schools may choose from one of those 4, or they may choose another assessment. And those 4 again are the MAST, NWA MAPS, iReady, and the ACT Suite. But if they have, a different model that aligns better with, another assessment, we do have a process for the schools to go through to make sure it's valid, reliable, and matches, their model and the intent of what they want. So, yeah, it's up to the schools according to the Community Choice Schools Act.
So just a follow up to that, Kathy, just based upon my experience with actually all 4 of those assessments, actually. Just be cautious and you might want to consider creating a crosswalk document regarding proficiency cut scores, because in particular for NWA MAP, in order for the score to actually be a proficient score on MAST or ACT, it actually has to be closer to 65th or 70th percentile on NWA MAP. The 50th percentile will not test proficient on, Renee's nodding her head. Those of us who have used these tests know that those scores are kind of apples and oranges, but you can absolutely create a crosswalk document that says, okay, if you get 70th percentile on MAP, that is equivalent to proficient on the MAST. And OPI did share some of that information at a recent meeting I attended regarding MAST. So I'm sure their assessment department would have this available for you. Julia's nodding her head. If you would like that information, I think it would be very helpful so that you're kind of comparing more carefully those scores.
Yeah, no, that is incredibly helpful. Thank you. I definitely will follow through on that. The more resources we have, the better. And yeah, just ensuring that we're getting, like you said, apples to apples comparison is also very important. That's one of the intents of the law. And with schools having the freedom to choose the different assessments, that's not going to be easy. So thank you.
Yep.
Good morning, Kath. This is Tim. Looking at your school environment measures, I'm fascinated by a couple of these here. I like that staff retention. That's very interesting, having that as a component in there. But then also looking at daily attendance, and I'm curious where these percentages came from, and if anybody, possibly if OPI has this, do we have any idea what our average daily attendance rate is across the state?
Mr. Chair, yeah, if I can answer that, Dr. Margle, we do have access to average daily attendance rate, correct?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, through our Infinite Campus system.
Okay, I think that'd be interesting to see what it is.
Yes.
Yeah, just interesting measures here. The mathematician in me loves the percentages rather than trying to put out surveys and So you remove that component of it, but, and then I noticed your use of quintiles instead of quartiles, so, which is, seems to be so many others. What was the rationale in that?
Yeah, Chair Schmidt and Chair Tharp, excuse me. That was a recommendation from the Solomon Group is who we contracted with. And, you know, I'm also kind of familiar with quartiles, but I know NWA Maps, I believe, is quintiles. So that's where that came from. And yeah, they did a great job. Actually, I have in front of me here, you're not gonna be able to see it, but a report that they put together for us that very clearly outlines all of that. They are psychometricians, very experienced with assessment and also with charter authorizing. So they were great resources to us.
Very interesting. It's fascinating to see how this plays out in practice and learning.
It will be, yes. And I hear you on the attendance, so I will definitely follow up with OPI. We want to set a high standard, but we also want this to be realistic. And one of the things I should mention too is in the academic measures, the law allows us to set baseline data and to bridge up to those measures by the fourth year, by the year that renewal is taken. So, in the fall of the first year of opening of the school, they'll collect their baseline achievement data, and then we'll work with the school to bridge the gap to getting to, at least meets in their renewal year. So I think, it'll be interesting to see what kind of models come forward. In my experience, typically students or parents choose for two reasons. One, they want more challenge, or two, they feel like their students' needs aren't being met. So a lot of times your baseline data is very low. I've worked with schools where we've started out with 2% proficiency. So, I think that will allow us to work with the school, take them where they are, but then, bridge that gap very quickly and get them up to proficiency is the goal.
Any other questions? From anybody? Kathy, you and your committee have done amazing work. This is a fantastic performance framework in my eyes. I think your guiding questions are really important to refer back to meet the goal, and clearly you put a lot of thought into this. And that I think it'll be interesting to see the attendant, the questions that were raised here, I think will really help a lot. With that, anything else that we need to talk about before we move on?
That's all I have. Thank you very much, Chair Schmidt, for the compliment, and I will relay that back to the commission. I will say we started with a different version of this, so having time to, get our policy together and get our thoughts together and, have those guiding principles too really helps. It just helped us, and, we're always flexible and adaptable as we get up and running as well, but it's been very nice to have the time to think through this.
Yeah, things happen for a reason.
Yes, they may.
Do you have any updates on the court case?
We are still waiting, coming up on 3 years. And like I said, the commission is fully prepared to, give access to this law, which, allows community choice charter schools, which are run independent from district schools and have all of those freedoms from state law. So we're anxious to get up and running. So hopefully we hear something soon.
Well, I think I can speak for the Board of Public Ed that we appreciate all your hard work.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm ready to move on to the public charter school site visits.
Okay. Madam Chair, as I mentioned yesterday, we were able to visit all 5 of our new charter schools. Very exciting. And as we were visiting all of those charter schools, one of the things we heard was that the requirement to meet the threshold to receive their basic entitlement was a challenge and something that they had asked us to continue to look into. And although it's not something that was a requirement by the board, to continue to advocate on their behalf. So I thought it was, before we jump into sort of feedback and conversation about the visits, I thought it would be good to just sort of share with you where we were at with those basic entitlements after this year, and what it will look like next year. So just a reminder that when you become a charter school, you receive that basic entitlement in the first year. Regardless of obviously knowing where you'll be at in meeting those thresholds. Those thresholds are at least 71 in the first year, 21 and 41. Think of it as like at least 10 kids in a grade level. You don't necessarily need that, but that's kind of how I remember it. So 71, 21, 41. You'll notice that next year, Billings Multilingual Academy will not receive in their middle school or high school. Mount Ascension Learning Academy will not receive in their elementary or middle school, and Ronan Charter will not receive in their middle or high school. All the others did meet their thresholds and they will receive their basic entitlements. Now, that doesn't mean that they're totally out. They can next year get to their threshold and they can receive their basic entitlement the following year. Office Public Instruction has been really helpful to them to think of creative ways to get to their basic entitlements. Again, we're not talking about enrollment. We're talking about A and B. So if they have partial enrollments, that only counts as a partial A and B. And so it does take a lot to get to one A and B oftentimes. So I wanted to show you this before we jumped into those conversations about the site visits, because I know that was a common thread between those site visits. So just a reminder of who those schools were. We were talking about Bighorn Academy in Hardin. We were talking about Butte Charter Academy in Butte. Central Montana CTE Academy in Lewistown, Libby Central Charter School in Libby, and Ronan Charter Academy in Ronan. So at this time, I'll just kind of open up to the board and have you guys share some observations, share what your thoughts were, because we were really excited to have at least one board member at all of the visits this year, which I think was really great. Granted, we only had 5 instead of 19 or 17, so that was a little easier. Go ahead.
Can I first ask a question about the A and B?
Please do.
The 3 that are not meeting the benchmark, the thoughts from them, do they talk to you about strategy towards aiming to achieve in the future? Or, as we have had some charters actually ask us to pause or, go away from it. Do you know any intent from those 3?
Well, I think Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, I think you heard from Ronan when we were there. That was before they knew they didn't get they didn't reach their threshold. They didn't get the basic entitlement. I think we heard from them that first there was, I think, a little misunderstanding from them of how they could apply to get that and what there's, how they could get students. So I think maybe they started a little bit late. Right, they had a little late start of how they were getting those students. They were, I think, trying really hard then to get students engaged in the charter. I think they're also running a program though that has small size, right? They have more hands-on, smaller class sizes. But I also think they've been working with OPI to really think about more work-based learning opportunities, working with the tribes. Those are things I know they talked with you, Chair Schmidt, about. And so I do think that they have some strategies to get more students. In my conversations with them, they specifically said that they have no doubt that they will be in a better place next year. Even by the end of the school year, I think that they thought that they were going to be meeting their marks. So I think that they are in a better place at this point. I can't speak for the other 2. I think for Billings Multilingual Academy, I think they're in an interesting position because they have a school that's meeting needs of a very specific population. And so they are serving a specific group of kids. And obviously, if they don't have a certain number of students, right, I don't know that is going to grow for them. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. And then for Mount Ascension, we have had some conversations with them about potentially dropping one of their programs that they have small numbers for. And they're having those conversations with their school leadership at this point.
Thank you. I was just curious.
Yeah, we have had conversations with all of them. Just kind of see how they want to proceed.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this?
Well, I was just gonna give an update on my visit.
Oh, okay, we're ready, yeah.
So I had the opportunity to go to the Butte Pathway Academy. Just a few highlights there. We had the opportunity to visit with the students, which I think was the most telling about what was successful about that charter and students had a variety of reasons for attending the Pathway Academy, but one shared characteristic. And that characteristic was prior to attending Pathway Academy, they had terrible attendance for whatever reason. Could have been mental health issues, it could have been access issues, not fitting into an environment that had hundreds of other kids. Just a real variety of reasons that students previously had attendance problems. In contrast, their attendance at Pathways is over 90%. Students come to school every day. They enjoy the relationships that they have with teachers and their peers in a small environment. And they're extremely appreciative, and all of them are on track to graduate or transition to something like Job Corps or other opportunities and experience success. So I would definitely say that Butte Pathway Academy has recaptured probably 60 students who otherwise would not have graduated high school. So it was really exciting to see.
That's awesome.
Yeah. You went to Libby, didn't you?
I did. I went to Libby Charters. Is it
Central Charter.
Libby Central
Yeah.
Charter? They're all
Yeah.
mixed up.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. What Member Neeskin said really could be said almost exactly verbatim for what these children said. So we got a really great opportunity to see. They had kind of a I guess I would say it reminded me of the game of life that they were playing in the hallways, but they had to pick, you know, their internet provider, where they lived, how much they spent on groceries, if they had a gym membership. This was just one activity, walked in that day, and there was a lot of kids going, oh my gosh, I have no money left. And there were some that were like, I'm a budgeting king. It was pretty great. But when you actually got to sit down with the students, there was really a lot of what Member Neeskin said, a lot of kids that were like, I would not have finished, I would not be here. It was maybe too anxious to be in a hallway full of hundreds of people. I felt like nobody cared about me, like, because the teachers were busy with 100 other kids. And they were, you know, very adamant, like, that's not the teacher's fault, but, you know, there's just a lot of kids, and I felt lost. There were some that really struggled with sicknesses, and not even just their own, their sister, their mom, you know, they're being the man or mom of the house when they're 15, and have really nowhere else, you know, priority, right, is not their education. And they felt like the staff really cared about them and put into them. And the best part was a father said, you know, I had very little hope for the outcome of my son, and he has completely turned into the wonderful kid that I knew he really was. Because he has the support here to really grow. I mean, he was almost in tears, speaking of the relief that the school had provided. And it gave me a lot of hope that, you know, we're doing the right thing. And, you know, it was exciting, and I begged them to invite me to their graduation. So if I don't get an invite here, I'm gonna be calling. But it was really great to see and be a part of, and, you know, proud on this board for, you know, picking a real winner, because it made a big difference in these handful of kids' life we got to meet with, and it was really neat. And they're very involved in the community. They run the food pantry through their school. They stock, and there was kids that were like, it's my favorite part of the day.
Yeah.
And that's neat to hear from high school kids that giving to their community was their favorite part, so.
And if I can add on that, every student that goes to that charter has either an internship or a job that they have to go to on Fridays.
Yep.
And they hold those days for that activity, so that they have some pathway that they're going into after they leave school, that they can get right into after.
That's awesome.
graduation.
And the community members that are involved in those internships were really excited. There was one gentleman from the Forest Service that was there. And, you know, he always never wanted to be a teacher, always wanted to be a Forest Service guy, but he was like, it was neat. He's like, I get to live like little teacher dreams with these kids and, you know, and all the community members were just as excited to have these kids. And the vet clinic was doing STEM projects within their own vet clinic that they were signing the kids, and it was really cool.
So it just occurred to me that when we do these tours, we probably need to invite the local legislators, don't we?
We definitely should. They should be seeing it for sure.
Because that's the kind of stuff that is.
And Matt,
very
I think that's a good point. We have on a lot of our trips, I know when we were up in Lewistown, we talked to them about inviting their legislators to get in there and see. And I think on a couple of our other trips, in Hardin, we talked to them too, like, you should be inviting your legislators in here to see this.
Yeah.
So we have those conversations, but I think you're right. On our visits, we should do that.
I think that would really solidify
A great idea.
the connections. So, and then you went to Hardin?
I went to Hardin. I missed the bison harvest.
I did go on a bison harvest.
She went on the bison harvest. You want to make any comments about that first?
I did have to have a trespass permit to go up and deep into Crowland. And it was probably one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to do. Watch kids harvest a buffalo. And just, yeah, in awe. It was very cool. It felt very spiritual. I don't know how else to explain it. It was like the most beautiful day. I have photos if anyone wants to see them. It was awesome. It just was, I sat next to an elder grandma of one of the students who just kind of shared like how they use all of the parts of the buffalo and, you know, back when she was a child of like what the women used to do. All of the students who were harvesting were boys, but she was talking about like how the women used to help and what they used to do. And it was really cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
That's great.
Sorry.
No, that's exactly fine. The next day, because I wasn't there, they arranged for me to visit with 5 or 6 of the kids that were on the harvest, and it was interesting. One young gentleman, he is a native Crow who has lived there for generations. His family's lived there for generations, and he talked about, you know, just the significance of getting to do this, that his grandparents and 5th grade grandparent was doing, connecting with his heritage. And so that was interesting. As far as the school goes, which is what we're talking about mostly, what these guys said was absolutely the case. Parents and grandparents in the room, when we had our conversational roundtable, talked about the change in the kids and the fact that they weren't attending school at all. They wouldn't go to school and there was nothing to be done. And they weren't successful. And, you know, that when they transferred to the academy, maybe they had 1 high school credit, maybe. And now they're all on track to graduate, except maybe one, and they weren't sure about that one. That was a possibility because they had several days yet to complete work. So that is a huge change. They talked about caring teachers. I asked specifically, would you go back to the high school? I think there were only 2 kids that were thinking about going back to the high school, the regular high school. The rest of them said, I'm not leaving this. No way, Jose. Didn't matter what year that they were, if they were sophomores or freshmen, that they just really felt supported and like they could succeed there. Several of the kids there did have jobs. That in the Hardin community is an amazing thing. One worked at Dairy Queen, one worked at Big R. Yeah, Big R. And so that was, you know, a great thing for high school kids who maybe wouldn't be considered, the first choice in employment, coming from an alternative school, but that was just really success. I saw lots of success. I saw kids who were well-spoken, that everybody was just amazed that they were well-spoken, and that was a wonderful thing to see. So that part was really good. We got to tour their facility. They are lucky they have a building, a really amazing brand new building for their school, for their academy. And it's designed to be collaborative. It's designed to have everybody be a community as well as providing space for classes. kids can go to the high school, you know, for, once they get kind of up to snuff, they can go back to the high school for a particular class like music or something that they would like. So there's those kinds of things that happen. The last thing I want to say is, I was impressed that they have taken the stance that for kids to succeed, just like you need glass, some people need glasses, they need things to make the playing field level. And it is things that we would not think about. Kids don't come to school because a parent has had a flat tire for 2 weeks and they can't get to school. That I have lice, they can't get to school. I haven't been able to take a shower for a week. There's no running water. So the school provides things like laundry facilities and a shower and just lots of things like that to take away excuses for kids not to come, so they can get their basic needs met by coming to school. And so their attendance rate is good. They didn't give me a specific attendance rate. They do have other problems, so they run a night school as well. So kids can come and take Monday night is English and Tuesday night is math and whatever. So they can come at night at a 3-hour segment and get their credits up that way. So that's how they have been able to get kids all the way back on track. It was a good experience. If you will look at Bighorn Academy, you can see how many kids are enrolled there, which speaks highly of their success rate.
Yes. Good, thank you. Any questions from anybody else about the site visits? Sure.
Board member Mills and I went to Lewistown to Central Montana CTE.
Oh, good.
And so it was exactly what we hoped it was gonna become. And they're really working on expanding it to include the surrounding schools, which is something that they had approached at the very beginning. This wasn't, and they didn't name it Lewistown, they didn't name it Fergus, it's Central Montana. And the whole intent is to be able to offer these services for all of the schools, because there's 8 or 9 Class C schools within an hour drive of Lewistown. And so being able to make that available for everybody. And when we sat with the kids, I mean, they're excited. We've been asking about why they're doing things. And I got something I've heard so many times before from students, when you make a positive change, well, how come you didn't do that a couple of years ago so I could have taken advantage of it fully? It's like, well, we can only do what we can do. And so, yeah, they were graduating. One had no interest in riding on the ambulance or doing any of that, but she passed her national registry for EMT. But because she's gonna be going on to medical school, and she still took the EMT classes. So it's really interesting there. And then the kids who were gonna be staying there, local farmers and ranchers, and learning about welding and getting their welding certificates. So it's really fascinating. But I do have a question from a call, or maybe it's Leanne, or just a high level. I look at this list of the numbers, and some of the smaller communities are doing this just fine, but Helena and Billings are running into problems. Did they not anticipate? Did they bite off more than they could chew with this? I guess it's really disappointing to see our largest school districts in the state not able to come up with the numbers to at least get their basic funding.
Well, Mr. Chair, I think that's a good question. I think they are serving certain populations. So I think like I said, with Billings Multilingual Academy, I think that they are really targeting, certain multilingual group of students. So I think that is part of it. For the Mount Ascension Learning Academy, that is for students who are doing mostly online, who might be traveling, who might not learn, in a certain environment. So I think it is for a certain population of students, and maybe they started with a certain idea in mind, and it might not have come to fruition the way that they had thought. And so, some of these things change after you put a plan in place, and one of those things.
So I'm just curious as to how that can guide us in our application process and consideration. Because when we're asking them to put together projected enrollments,
well,
they're all being of course, you gotta be optimistic, but is there something that we can help? I don't know if a dose of reality or some way to help them solidify those anticipated numbers, or how many of those are, well, we know we're gonna get this many and we're crossing our fingers for the rest.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think those are good points. And I mean, you don't have to meet these requirements to be a charter school, right? So it just really helps to have the extra money.
Yeah.
I do think though, this was the first year, we probably I didn't do a good job of, supporting them and figuring out what this is going to look like. We are definitely doing a better job now. And when we get these applications and helping these schools understand what those budgets look like, we're reviewing those, we're, helping them better understand what those enrollments need to look like, what enrollment versus A and B means. And so I think this was a first year problem. I think those things are getting better. But these are conversations that we've been having with them, see if we can support them moving forward.
So I have a question that details on Dr. Tharp's. What are the barriers that the Multilingual Academy and Ascension and Ronan are running into so they don't meet their enrollments? What are the, they thought they were gonna get more kids and for example, Ascension is mostly online kids. So are there barriers that they're running into that they didn't anticipate?
Madam Chair, yes, I think some of it has to do with partial enrollment.
Oh.
So I think some of it has to do with, as a school, you were supporting those kids. And for Ronan, what they had told us was, it takes no less time for me to support that kid if they are 0.25 A and B or 0.5 A and B than if they're 1 A and B. And so in their mind, it's sort of the breakup of the A and B versus the enrollment. And so it's that piece.
Was that the same experience that the others expressed?
I think they would express that. I've not heard that directly from them recently. I will say though, Leanne has been working with them closer of recent because she's in the position. And I've not talked to them recently, but she's been working with them.
I just have a quick question about, please forgive my not super in-depth familiarity with the application. I think I'm missing a piece in my head. I just don't remember. So it's been a blur the last year and a half. So when they do their charter application, do they have to, I know they talk about who they're targeting, right? Would it behoove us to say, you can have your intended target, but maybe also mention a secondary, like, if for the multilingual, this is who we're targeting. However, we also could look at targeting this if we don't get, like, should we encourage them to look at not such a small demographic, but also mention we could also support these kids as well within their application? Or like I don't know how to say that in a better way.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Chair, Board Member Maxwell, the whole point of the charter schools is that they have a mission.
Yeah.
Right, that their charter is serving a mission. And it's a school, right, to support certain group of kids and the mission and the goals. So. And it's up to you all, but if I were you, I would want them, based on the application, to stick to what their goals are, what their mission is. And I mean, certainly if they write that in their application, sure. But I wouldn't want them to really be, dovetailing off of that just so they can meet their A and B, but that doesn't come back to their core mission.
Yeah.
But I suppose that it's up to you all. We're actually gonna be talking about the application. That's the next item, so we can get into that if you are ready to move on.
Yeah. Any other questions on site visits okay. Let's move on to the application. Would you like to fill us in on the application environment and evaluation criteria?
Sure, thanks, Madam Chair. The next two, the next item actually has a couple components. Each year we do a quick evaluation of our application and evaluation criteria. We make some, brief tweaks to them before we have to publicly, put them out, publicize them for the public. Thank you. By June 1, that has to be out for folks to review to make application by the fall. So we met with our charter committee to review the application evaluation criteria. This went back to our conversations that we had after the meetings in January when you all approved and denied charters. And there were some really good conversations that you guys had about making some changes to that evaluation and application to really be more transparent about the scoring and just adding some specific information. It would make no large changes to what you already do, but just making sure that you're a little bit more transparent on what it is that we're doing. So in the application, we're on page 291 of your packet. I'm gonna actually scroll down to page 293. This is just sort of one of the lead-in pages for folks who are, going to apply. It just kind of mirrors what we're doing in the evaluation criteria. It really just says that the evaluation of the public charter school application will focus on whether implementing the proposals in the application will lead to academic, organizational, and financial performance that are promised in exchange for potential broad flexibility from our educational standards. The following criteria and rubric scales will be used to evaluate each application. Notice we add rubric scales because this is something that you all talked about.
Yeah.
The sections in here, again, are not changing. They will remain the same, and that is by design because these are all, remember, in statute.
Yeah.
The application demonstrates a commitment to create innovative public charter school. We're adding 0 to 10 points. And you'll see this when we get to the evaluation criteria as well. You all mentioned that you wanted to weight this a little bit more, so we're going to do that. Previously, it was 1 point. We're going to weight this 0 to 10 points. Next, the applicant demonstrates a commitment to create high-performing public charter school. Again, wanted to weight this a little bit more, so 0 to 10 points. The applicant demonstrates a commitment to and robust understanding of personalized and proficiency-based learning. Again, weighting this a bit more, 0 to 10 points. The next few you'll see are 0 to 1 points, and those did not change. Academic programs, school governance, business operations, community support and need. And then, business operations, community support and need, we did weight a bit more. You guys talked a lot about this of being really important. So we're gonna keep this at 0 to 10 points.
Good.
The clear and convincing proof and the likelihood of success, 0 to 1. And the applicant opens and operates a successful public charter school, 0 to 1. And then you'll just notice that I moved this last one up a bit because it is up further in your criteria. So that's what we did. And then I'm also going to show you something that we changed a little bit further down on page 295. We notice when folks are applying that they often miss the executive summary section. And we end up sending it back and asking them to please submit that. And then they end up going over their page limit and we have to, so we end up doing a lot of back and forth. This will not be read in the application, but I wanted to put it read here so that you saw it. But we added a lot of spaces. So that's what we did here, was just add a bunch of spaces so that it will not be missed. But that was what we changed in the application. They do miss it all the time. We send it back a lot. So I just wanted to show you this. I'm happy to take questions on this here.
Go ahead.
So thank you, Madam Chair. Nicole, thank you. I want to compliment the committee. This is exactly what I was hoping for. Have some sort of scaled point system because the yes, no answer was arbitrary. It was and so my next question is this, okay, to complement this, I need a document or some criteria. So when you look at page 293, the first bullet, when it says the applicant demonstrates a commitment to create that, I need a document that says this can be demonstrated in the following ways. So when I'm evaluating, I know whether it's a 2, a 5, a 7, or a 10 that I'm awarding. Because that's also arbitrary, or whether my thought of what their commitment is, as opposed to someone else. If I could just have something that tells me like, oh yeah, they showed these things, because I know what I think a commitment towards it is. But I'd like all of us, one of the things that's really been frustrating is I've really felt like, and this is not a ding on anyone, we're all grading them differently. Because we don't have a shared definition of if we're gonna see a commitment, this demonstrates a commitment in our agreed upon view. And that goes the same for the other next ones. And so I just want to put that out there because it really, because like the next one, they have a commitment to a high performing public school. Well, I'm pretty sure they're not trying to create a crappy public school. Right? So, but what would be some examples that they could provide us that shows that we feel it's gonna be a high performing, so that type of thing. Just a additional handout that's a guidance for the points.
For us.
It says,
For us, while we're grading, would be phenomenal. I think, and actually, I think the applicant would be very beneficial for them to see how we're going to grade that.
and we would need to say includes but is not limited to.
Yes.
Because it's so important that there's innovation involved here. We might not.
Yes.
And Madam Chair, we did start putting something together like that to show like what best practices are, so we do have that. I will say when we get to the evaluation criteria, obviously those yes, nos are still in there because those are from statute.
Yes.
So that will help you be like, do they have all these things? Cause they are required, they are in the application. And so those will help guide you, like, do they do all these things that are already required? That will help guide like how high you put them on the scale. But then are they also doing these other best practice things? So we will put that together for you to help guide you, yeah.
I appreciate, and the other thing I need from the committee is this, because board member Rasmussen brought this up last year, and I thought it was, or in January, and I thought it was spot on. I had not considered it, was when we talk about, is it an innovative idea? Is it innovative for that district as opposed to in general, right? And I think the committee needs to work on that, like, what is our guidance on that when we're evaluating? Because you brought up a great point, like, for that district, like, some of the things that people apply for, we were like, well, that's been around forever. And not in that district, it hadn't. So is that an innovative thing for the district, and should they get credit for that, or should they not get credit? I mean, we had never come to a consensus on how we should judge that, and I think as we keep improving our process, I think that's gonna be one of those things we're gonna need guidance on. I know I'm gonna need guidance.
I think our committee will hash that out because I happen to disagree with that.
Fine.
And so we'll work on
And
it.
I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just thought it was
Yeah.
very valid because I had not considered that. I had considered like, well, yeah, no, that's been around, just because they've never done it. But it's been around, so it's not really an innovative new thing. But I did think when you brought up, I thought it had merit, that like, well, but just because it's been around, this could be a totally new concept for that district, so.
It's definitely a good issue
It is.
definitely to hash out. Did you have a thought?
Yeah, one of the reasons I said that is because I don't want to get a bunch of applications that are nothing but, new ideas. Because the purpose of the charter school is not to create a brand new idea that no one has ever thought of before. The purpose of the charter school is to meet the needs of kids. Okay, so for charter schools in, let's say, District Y, to meet the needs of the kids, they have to identify some need that those kids have, and they have to meet them in a way that they haven't met them before, because if they had used a way they'd met before, that's not innovative, okay? So I don't want them trying to, bring the moon down to the earth because it's new and innovative, regardless of whether that meets the needs of the kids. What I'm interested in is new ways for that district, new to them, things that they have not had the ability, the chance, the support, the funds, the whatever to do before, to meet the needs of the kids. So I want innovation. I absolutely want innovation. But that's why I said that, because I don't want innovative to become more important than meeting the needs of the kids.
Yep, good point.
But I really compliment the work you're doing on this.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm looking
It's
forward to
way-
seeing,
Yeah.
the next generation with the guidance document. So,
We're doing this on the fly, unlike the public.
Community charter.
Yeah, community charter, which is.
You had a thought? Yeah.
Yes, one thing I would like the committee to consider is a staffing component. to this somewhere, whether it's in the community support and need because they are indeed part of the school community or somewhere in operations.
There's a question about
Yeah.
staffing in
Um,
the application, but yeah, go ahead.
and what I mean by that is when we have visited schools, it's become so apparent that the staff is the reason the kids are there.
Yeah.
And so I think the most successful applications will be the ones that have demonstrated staff support of the application. We don't ask for that in our application. We ask for, did the board approve it? And so there could be instances, for example, where the board has approved it, the administration has approved it, but conceptually, maybe the staff is either not aware of what's happening or maybe doesn't think that the concept will work in their district. I don't know, but if we want to kind of avoid instances where maybe success is less likely. I do know, like, for example, when we apply for the reading grant in Montana, the Montana Reads, we have to have 80% of our our teaching staff sign off on an agreement that this is something that they think is an endeavor that is worthwhile for their district. I think something like that would be interesting to consider. I'm not saying it has to be that exact same model, but it really does make you stop as a leader and educate your staff about what this endeavor is, why we think it would be good for the district. And in the model we currently have set up, it's incumbent upon the teachers to attend the board meeting to kind of educate themselves and presumably interact with the school board about whether they think that this is a good idea for their district and will be successful. But maybe there's a way we can take a measure ourselves of that as well. So just something to consider because staffing is ultra important. All of the kids talked about their relationships with their teachers and staff.
I think that's
So-
I think that's a great addition, and maybe we can have a question that says demonstrate staff support,
Right.
however you want to do that.
Couple of these.
Yeah, I think it does too, and I, because we've asked about numbers, how are you gonna staff this, but. yeah.
Just had a quick thought to add to Member Neeskin's thought. One of the schools that we went to, and I won't say it, but it was mentioned, was that there was a fear in the current public school staff that the charter school would change their demographic, take over, there's a fear of changing any model. Like anytime you do change, it's scary. And staff that had been there for a long time were very scared that it was gonna harm the district, harm their, not work for the kids, but then, or also change their way that they've been teaching, successfully for many years. And once the charter happened, they were like, oh, this is great. But coming from an administrative point, that's a huge hill to climb with your staff. If you don't, like Member Neeskin said, prime them to say, hey, this is our intent, this is where we're going. And if you get all those staff on board before it starts to like give it a go, it's gonna be way easier. They're gonna tell family and friends and kids. Otherwise, their trepidation goes into the community and can cause problems downhill for that charter if it goes through. So I really enjoyed that point.
Yeah, that's been my experience too, and I think part of the application then becomes preparing the community for change.
Yeah.
And which is vital, or it's not gonna work, so, yeah, so thoughts. You have another thought?
I think since these are taken from law, I think there's space in, applicant demonstrates commitment to create innovative, applicant that demonstrates commitment to create a high performing charter district, community support, which teachers would be a part of. That's all places where those kinds of things, you could show.
Yeah.
I also think during your interview process, that is a question that you can ask them. How engaged has your
Staff.
Right,
been?
yeah, we need to include that in the interview.
Madam Chair, are you ready for me to move on to the criteria?
Yes, please.
All right, now we're on page 299. I did want to point out that I added a little blurb in here because I do think afterwards we had some of the schools who applied, who had questions about some of the scoring and said, I did really well on these sections of your scoring, I had really high scores, and how is it that I didn't get approved? And I think it's really important that we make clear that, we may think that you have really great school governance section. That one section of a high score or 3 sections even of a high score does not guarantee approval by the board.
Agreed.
And so I wanted to make sure that that was really clear in this, evaluation criteria. That, no scores on the evaluation criteria are guaranteed for assurance until final approval by the board.
Agreed.
You'll see here that the charter committee, basically everything you saw in the application was transferred here. So the ratings and the change of language, we removed the yes, nos, we added the 0 to 10s. So I'm really not going to go over those, but I do want to point one thing out to you. Down on page 301 under community support and need. There are 2 questions under this section. But rather than make them both like 0 out of 5, each of them, or both of them out of 10, or vice versa, we wanted to make the whole section scored together. So you score the 2 questions together. And so just wanted you guys to know that that's how we did that one, since there are only 2 questions there. So that's how that one will be. The yes, no, and then the sections out of 10.
And one more comment on a couple of these. In our committee, the school governance and the business operations and all those things, those are kind of baseline, like if they don't have that, we didn't put a lot of huge scores on there, because if you don't have that, don't apply.
And Madam Chair, I think the other thing too is, you might think like, oh, 0 out of 1, like that doesn't seem like it's really high, but I think the other thing that's really important is when you just have 0, 1, we know that means 1 board member. So when you're looking at that, that when the last question is, do you recommend that the board approve this? And when you all are looking at it, and you see that only 3 people, there's number 3 is there, that means 3 board members said yes. There's no question of like what that number means. And so there was some rationale of why we left those numbers as 1.
Yeah.
Because there's no guessing game for the rest of you when you were looking at that. So there was some rationale of why that was left that way. Was for the rest of you. So I did want to just kind of chime in, but I'll leave it to the rest of you now if you wanted to say anything else. That was the rest of all I wanted to say.
Does anybody have any questions about the evaluation criteria?
No question, just a suggestion. Now, I know you left a big blank area there for the exec summary. Possibly just drop a watermark in there that says insert executive summary here. Just a watermark, that way it's like so clear, so obvious. You have to be adults.
Sign with blood.
And what happens, they fill out the application and then you write the executive summary last.
Yeah.
And yet there it is at the top, because we want to read it first. And so, I mean, I understand.
Thank you. I will do so.
That's a good suggestion. All right. Chair, I am prepared to make a motion.
We don't have to do a motion.
What's this little thing?
No.
Oh, that's on the contract.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, are we ready to move
Yeah.
to the intervention process, school intervention process?
This one we do, yeah. You ready, Madam Chair?
I am ready.
Great. This is new for us, Madam Chair, so this I will ask for a motion on. This is our new tiered intervention plan. The charter committee did review this for us. This is something that we're putting in place. Statute right now only talks about a corrective action plan. We thought in the office it made sense to talk about improvement sooner. We don't want to wait until year 3 for a corrective action plan. We want to support our schools a bit sooner and really try to talk about improvement earlier. And so as we get to our annual performance reports, which we'll talk about here after, you'll see that we have just a couple schools who in their 2nd year are not meeting their standards in 2 years. Now, that's not alarming to us, right? It's just 2 years, but we do think that there is some support that we can give them. So what we've done is we put this tiered intervention plan together. Honestly, it's very similar to what we do for accreditation. we really pulled a lot of the great information together from what our folks at OPI are already doing. So tier 2 says increased oversight and improvement plan. We've put this in, we've asked the schools put together an improvement plan in year 2 that really does a lot of the same things that you would do in a corrective action plan, but it doesn't really cause the alarm of a corrective action plan. Really, we're saying, give us the root cause analysis. You know, what's some of the context behind why maybe you didn't meet the standards this year? What are some of the things that we can do over the next year to really support you and, you know, really get to meeting those standards? And then we also include some monitoring. You know, what we're going to do to support them, how we're going to check in with them, what we can do as staff to support them in those reports, be preventative, focus on helping them. Again, it's not, there's no sanctions, it's preventative in nature. When we get to the 3rd year is really when we should be talking about those corrective action plans. That's when you have 3 years of not meeting your standards in the same areas of academic, organizational or financial. That's then when we start talking a little bit more about quarterly check-ins with the board. This is more remedial, compliance focused. It is more formal and enforceable. It is linked to consequences. And it's used after failing sort of that tier 1 and tier 2. And then when you get to your 4th year, that is when it gets much more serious. If you're in your 4th year and you've not improved, that is the year before renewal. Again, this is all information for you all to determine how and if you want to renew schools once we get to that 5th year. And so this is really to sort of say to them, hey, you have to turn this around or you will be non-renewed. And so it was really important for us to put this together to really help all of you also to have a plan in place to determine non-renewal for those schools. Madam Chair, I'll turn it back to you for questions. Any questions?
This is something that, as we get into renewal, which will be in just a couple of years for some of these schools. As we get into renewal, this is a series of things that I would like to see attached to their request for renewal, so I could look at those, you know, and not only just, they were under tier 1 monitoring. Okay, was there any documents that they submitted or anything like that that I can look at, or et cetera, et cetera? Or this was kind of, you know, thing that happened. This year they were in this, and this year they were in this, and this year they were over here. You know, those were the areas of non-compliance. It was not, wasn't a consistent staffing or, you know, academic progress. It was a variety of things. So we could see how that would impact renewal. So that's some of the things I'd like to be able to do.
And if I can answer really quick, yeah, Madam Chair, when we look at the packet that I have here,
Okay.
In front of you, that is tier 1. Is
Okay.
it what's in the packet?
Okay.
Tier 2 will be like an actual letter.
Oh, okay.
And we do have a couple schools there and we'll make sure that you all get those.
Will they have a
And the
response to
improvement
that
plan.
letter?
They have to submit an improvement plan.
Okay.
Yes,
I'd like to have that.
and we'll get those.
Rich, you had a question?
Yes, Madam Chair, and this might be your intent, but I might suggest just clarifying. In the tiers, it reads to me, year 1, year 2, year 3 tiers.
Mhm.
It may be helpful for schools who are perhaps more seriously non-compliant earlier on to make your triggers disjunctive. Year 1 or year, you know, or multiple measures or failure to comply. Perhaps clarify that you could implement any of your tier interventions at any time for programs that may not be succeeding earlier.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's more akin to a progressive discipline where we don't have to go through step 1, step 2 to get to step 3 where it would be justified. It's just a thought. Just offer that for your consideration. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, I appreciate that.
And if I could respond to that, I think you're right. I mean, I don't think that it would. I don't think you would have to go through tier 2 to get to tier 3. I think if you were seriously out of compliance, I mean, statute only requires that tier 3 exists, frankly. So if you had serious non-compliance, we could potentially just go, yeah.
Tier 3.
But that I think would be under a really, small number, but at the same time, I don't know what I don't know, but we could certainly do that, yes.
It's just a suggestion.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, questions? Good. Okay, now I am prepared to make a motion for the public charter school intervention.
Please proceed.
I move to approve public charter school intervention process.
Got a motion to approve the public charter school intervention process as presented. Is there a second?
Second,
Additional discussion?
Uh,
Yes.
I agree with the comments that were just made, and I feel like we could amend the measures to instead say years, it could say or serious non-performance. I do think, you know, and on rare occasions, there could be an instance where it's more appropriate to go to higher level interventions sooner.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Rich. That's a great idea. We keep trying to help schools and try to get them the right pathway, and I'd hate to end up with battling semantics and legalese, saying, well, you didn't go through this process first. It's where
Right.
our whole purpose is to get them assistance right away.
Yeah.
So we've got the smart guy at the end of the table to help us out.
Wanted to add his key.
Would you like to amend the motion? Do we need to amend the motion?
Yes, yeah, because we would not be doing it as
I think if you could just add,
meant.
amend and just allow me some ability to amend the language that's in the packet.
Dr. Nixon, would you like to amend the motion to include the language as discussed?
Yes, I would like to amend the motion as discussed.
Is that clear enough for our minutes? Paul, Chris?
Do it.
Okay, all right, so we have to just make sure we have a clear understanding. Is there,
So I can be more clear. I would like to amend the motion so that the performance monitoring is not tied to time as the only indicator of need.
Mr. Batterman?
Sure.
That's sufficient?
I believe it would be.
There's second to the amendment.
I'll second that.
Second, to the amendment. That's all. Many other discussions on the amendment? Any public comment? Public comment online? Okay, we'll take action on the amendment first to amend the motion to include this other language. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Back to the original motion to approve the framework as an entirety. Any further discussion? Any public comment? Public comment online? Yeah, those in favor of approving the intervention process as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you. And then you've got one more there, Chairman.
The performance reports, which is our thick packet right here.
Yeah,
McCall, would you please walk us through that?
happy to, Madam Chair. We're also on page 306 in your packet. The information in the packet for folks online is a condensed report. It does not have all of the schools in it, although once we are done today, I will include the full compiled report up on our website under the report section of the public charter school page. But I do want to just point a couple things out in the information that is in your packet today. This is just like what you got last year. It's the annual performance report of all of our charter schools. Similar actually to what Kathy explained this morning. Each year, our public charter schools have to go through the performance framework, or they use the performance framework to go through their annual reporting process. They also, just a reminder, have to go through accreditation each year. Reminder, we didn't do accreditation this year, so the statuses that you see in here are from last year. We will update those as we can. Information that I wanted just to point out for you, that I think is important is, the numbers at a glance, I think is always really interesting, and some of that information, as we talk about executive summaries, you know, when people ask you like, what are some really cool things that you wanna talk about or point out about your charter schools? This is a page I actually always go to and talk about number of students that we have in our charters, or some cool things that our charters have been doing. I think that that's, one of the cool things that we have going. You can also see is, you know, we go up to our charters of how they've done, at least our charters who are in their second year, how they did last year, how they did this year. You will see our charters who are in the second year, the high school charters. I think it was a little bit of a shock for them because last year they didn't have the high school data. This year they did have to do their high school, submissions for academic performance. And I think that that was a lot different for a lot of them. Now I think they were very open to doing that. It was just different than having to just submit an ACT, which is I think what they were used to doing in the past. So there is some different data there. You'll also note that for our schools who are in their second year, the scoring was a little bit tougher.
Yes.
And I really appreciate folks at Southfolk Instruction for giving us many people from their staff to help us score. I was really grateful, not just once, but twice. We did allow an addendum process. So schools submitted scores or submitted information. They were scored. I think we had a lot of really surprised schools on some of the scores. So we allowed an opportunity, I think a week, maybe two, to resubmit some information. And then we scored that information again. And this is the final product. I do want to note that Connect Academy in the middle school, they did drop that middle school program. So where the middle school was the first year, you'll see that's where Ronan Middle School is in the second year. So those won't quite match up. And then we get into the programs for each of the schools individually. Now, Renee, when you were, or Board Member Rasmussen, when you were asking about, or I should also note the performance framework rubric is also in here, so you can see what the actual rubric questions were. And then when you were asking about like, what does tier 1 look like? Each of these annual reports, the first one's a bad example because they scored well on everything, so maybe go to the next one. But on each of these reports, if they had anything below a meet standard, so a yellow or a red, they had to provide a performance monitoring summary context below that and tell us why. Why did you not meet the standards in those sections? You know, to provide some context to us. What is it that prevented you from meeting these? That to us is tier 1. And frankly, we require everyone to do it, even if you're in tier 2, if you're in tier 3, no matter what, we require everyone to do it. It's just a quick summary for us of telling us what was it that prevented you to do that. We think it's good information, good to have in the report, even if they have to do a plan later down in the road. So this would be considered tier 1.
Okay.
For a school that we're in that.
But my point was I don't want to have to page through, 40.
Oh, we'll put that together when we do that. Yeah, we go to renewal, yes. But just if you're looking at this, I wanted to point that out so that you could find that information. Okay. And Madam Chair, I'm not gonna go through all of these, but it's important that you have them. It's important that you know where they are on the website if you want to flip through them, or if people have questions, you can find those there. I'm happy to take questions.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions about this?
Oh, sorry, if I can say one more thing. We are working to get a dashboard and system that can download this information better for us, so it is not in these back and forth paper documents with signatures. And we've been working with state procurement for far too long to get an RFP out to procure a new system.
Yeah, because I don't know, what are we at, 22 schools or something like that now?
Yeah.
And yeah, I can see that increasing.
not substantially, but I can see it increasing. So we don't want to do this hand laborious stuff. Right.
All right, any other thoughts or comments for the performance? reviews? You work with.
Great, thank you, Chair Schmidt. This is some rich information. Certainly, I don't have time for pour over it in detail today, but I encourage everybody to check it out. Spend some time with that. It's very good information about our schools there. Great, next couple of agenda items are under the licensure committee. Dr. Slinger.
Thank you, Chair Tharp. So board members, we are now on page 322, item number 24. This is a follow-up to what we talked about yesterday. This is for the Class 8 licensure. So this is the proposed notice for public hearing and timeline pertaining to that. This is part of the procedure that needs to take place to accomplish what we talked about yesterday. Other than that, Dr. Tharp, I'm ready to make a motion on this.
Please do.
I move to approve the proposed notice of public hearing and timeline pertaining to rulemaking in Title 10, Chapter 57, Educator Licensure Standards, and authorize filing the notice with the Secretary of State for publication in the Montana Administrative Register.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Any discussion? Any public comment?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Watson.
Thank you. Good morning. For the record, my name is Rob Watson and it's WATSON, the director for the School Administrators of Montana. Yesterday there was some celebration and some fun related to Class 8s. And I'm not going to be the fun police or the destroyer of fun. My daughter sometimes calls me the fun police. Had to put my foot down. Class 8, I think you're headed in the right direction with the Class 8. I have no major concerns. The one thing I just wanted to draw the board's attention to was a law that passed in 2025. It's 20-3-323 MCA code. It relates to background checks. I only bring this up because I was recently recruited out of retirement. I'm going to be teaching a class at MSU this summer. I'm excited, a little nervous. It's been a while since I've taught. But because I'm a brand new employee at MSU, I had to go through their background checks. And what I found out is they do not do a fingerprint background check for employees. We've always been told from OCHI that, they complete background checks, but we didn't realize that they were not fingerprint background checks. They do a name-based background check, which I had to go through and I passed, by the way. But this state law in 2025 now requires school districts to make sure that anybody working with kids has gone through a fingerprint background check. A lot of schools have already been doing this. But what this law did is it broadened it a little bit to like volunteers that might be in the school, or if a student goes out to a job site, then the employer of that job site has to make sure that those folks have been background checked. The onus falls on the school to verify this. But the tricky thing about the Department of Justice and the fingerprints, the school cannot actually run the fingerprints, as they can't read the results. The employer is the only one that can actually read those fingerprint results. So unfortunately, the university is going to have to run the fingerprint background check and read the results. And then the university will sign an affidavit to the school saying that the background check was cleared. And again, we probably should have been doing this all along with Class 8s. But we were told by OCHI that, yeah, we've already background checked everybody and we assumed it was a fingerprint background check, and that just has not been the case. So I don't think this is going to cause huge issues. I think there'll be some discussions like who pays for these fingerprint background checks. But I want the board to be aware of this issue, because in the fall, if we have a bunch of kids taking even online classes from instructors, those instructors need to have a fingerprint check. So I just want to make the board aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. Fun police, I like that. Because I've regarding this the whole idea of the fingerprint background check versus the name background check. I've got a friend who works, as a detective in a law enforcement agency out of state, and he does presentations on child sexual predators and what to look for and how to keep your kids safe. And he is adamant about saying, even a fingerprint background check is not sufficient. That all a fingerprint background check is gonna do is find convictions. It will not find accusations. It will not find investigations. It only will determine convictions. So you could have somebody who was arrested, accused multiple times, and it'll never show up. So sometimes, I'm gonna be the fun police here, and I think just because we can come back and say, well, all of our people had a fingerprint background check, that's not a guarantee on anything. That just means that they have not been convicted of anything as of yet. So, but I know that this is something that we've been dealing with, asking the OPI for assistance on, because I know it caused a lot of issues when this bill was passed in work-based learning, and I had students that were not able to get work-based assignments because employers were unwilling to take and get every single person on that work site fingerprint background checked and trying to figure that out. So this is an ongoing thing.
Mr. Chair, if I'm able to, thank you for bringing up the work-based learning part of the, as we looked for solutions in that, we are adamant in looking to solutions for this as well. We thank Dr. Watson for his public comment on this. We've already collaborated and had some conversations with Angela and Ochi on this. So we will be providing solutions as we go forward on this as well. And once again, thank you for the collaboration to the board, to the Office of the Commissioner of Higher Education on this. We're excited to see this move forward. And thank you all again.
Great. Any other public comment? Any public comment online? See, Dr. McLean has come off of mute. It's she able to? Angela, did you want to say something? There we go. We
Mr.
can hear you.
Chair, members of the board, thank you so much. This is kind of wonky this morning, but I did hear the entire conversation. Yes, I have had multiple conversations with Executive Director Watson and with the Office of Public Instruction, and we look forward to working with all partners to just make whatever needs to work happen as we move forward. And we'll look forward to meeting with each of those groups in the not too distant future, and then rolling out a plan and clear communication to our campuses to work effectively with our K-12 superintendents as we roll out these new changes this next year. But we do thank the board for this great collaborative work. We thank the Office of Public Instruction for it. We thank all of our partners across the K-12 setting. We think that this is going to be transformational. So thank you so much, Mr. Chair and members of the board, for your great work on this and your leadership.
Any other public comment? Great. We'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion on proposed notice of public hearing timeline pertaining to rulemaking for 1057 education license standards, authorized filing of notice with Secretary of State for publication in the MAR, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. Item number 25.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So item number 25, the action and superintendent's recommendation on the annual and filing fee amount for the Class 9 special education technician license. Crystal Andrews coming forward from OPI. Hi, Crystal. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I would just lead off by saying, we've been moving forward diligently towards this Class 9 licensure. At some point, we have to do this, right? We have to actually charge a fee. And so someone could actually do this. So that's what we're going to do. Crystal, you want to give us your background?
Yeah, that'd be great. Good morning, Chair Tharp, Chair Slinger, and members of the board. My name is Crystal Andrews, spelled ANDREWS for the record. I am the School and Educator Effectiveness Senior Manager at the Office of Public Instruction, and I will be with you today for items 25 through 29. So this first topic is a fee that, as you said, Chair Slinger, needs to be established for that Class 9 special education technician license. In your packets on page 334 is the current fee schedule for all Montana educator licenses with the proposed addition of the Class 9 license. Since this license does not require advanced degrees, like a master's, as you can see for the class 1, 3, and 6. The recommended fee would be the same as the class 2 standard teaching license, the class 4 CTE license, class 5 provisional license, class 7 American Indian Language and Cultural Specialist license, and possibly the class 8 dual credit post-secondary license, which obviously we can change this again if needed at a later date. The fee for initial applicants includes the $10 processing or filing fee for a total of $80 that first time. Once an educator applies to renew their license, which I believe is 5 years like other licenses, the fee would be only $70. State Superintendent Hedlund recommends the approval of the annual and filing fee amount for the Class 9 Special Education Technician license, which will take effect once the application is ready in the Teach Montana system. With that, I stand for any questions the board may have.
Thank you. Does any board member have a question first? Seeing none, Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Please do.
I move to approve the annual and filing fee amounts for the Class 9 Special Education Technician license as recommended by the state superintendent.
Heard the motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second, board member discussion. Anybody else besides me concerned that we're gonna have classes of license 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9?
I
Bug the heck out of me. We're gonna have to add another one.
Yeah,
We'll figure out what we can add to make it 8.
I said no more than 10. Well, we'll go back to 8. I agree, Chair Tharp.
Any other discussion? Any public comment? Dr. Watson?
I haven't said anything for a day and a half, so.
We'll just hang out here the rest of the
Thank you again, once again, Rob Watson, School Administrators of Montana. One other issue about this one is it's not currently in the STARS Act. We believe, School Administrators of Montana believe that this particular classification, because of the extra training and the certification, that it should qualify for the STARS Act, the Quality Educator Payment. That's not something that this board can do, but just wanted you to know that in our delegate assembly with our members in the next couple of weeks, we will discuss this issue and it'll become a legislative issue for us in the 2027 session. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Watson. And the public comment? Ms. Popham?
Good morning, Popham, Director of Public Policy for MFPE. My last name is Popham for the record. And since Dr. Watson brought it up, we have already begun advocating to add Class 9 to the STARS Act. Because again, as you probably are well aware, most schools are having a major difficulty filling para positions. And just don't have the money to pay them what they are worth, because I would argue they are the glue that holds most of our schools together. And so we have already begun as MFPE, we've already begun to lobby to add that Class 9 license to the STARS Act, because it is something that is incredibly important to us to make sure that our paras are able to live and work in their communities. And getting this certification and adding those extra education pieces to me means that they should also be compensated. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Popham. Any other public comment? Any public comment online? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the superintendent's recommendation on annual and filing fee amounts for the Class 9 special ed tech license signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next few items here are for the accreditation committee. Dr. Neeskens.
Thank you. We are now on page 335 of the packet. And this first item 26 is action on waiving the deficiency deviation in ARM 1055-605 for non-licensed or misassigned dual credit educators. We have Dr. Julie Mergel and Crystal Andrews here to share more. Turn it over to you.
Good morning. Chair Neeskens, members of the board, for the record, Julie Virgil, spelled MURGEL, Chief Program Officer at the Montana Office of Public Instruction. We are on page 336 of the board packet. The purpose of this presentation is to provide information on waiving the deficiency deviation in ARM 10-55-605 for non-licensed or misassigned dual credit Class 8 educators in the accreditation cycle for 25-26. So if you look on page 337, dual credit teachers not licensed or misassigned by endorsement areas result in schools receiving a deviation as outlined on the accreditation rubric E in the reference guide. So when you look at that reference guide, if a Class 8 dual enrollment teacher was not licensed or misassigned, it gets applied in that rubric, and you'll see there, it becomes a deficiency for this rubric E, the lowest level. School has one or more unlicensed staff. So the challenge for our school administrators was that sometimes they had to face the choice between either offering those dual credit offerings or an unlicensed or misassigned Class 8 educator or risk a deviation on their school's accreditation status. The recommendation from the superintendent is to remove the use of the 25-26 data, this past school year's data, that's implemented and gathered through Infinite Campus that contains deviations for the dual credit teachers to not be applied in the 3-year averages for the upcoming schools that go through the accreditation cycle. This expectation would only apply to a Class 8. This exception would not be used for Class 1, 2, 4, 5, 7 for emergency authorizations of employment. So just want to recommend again that we remove from rubric E if a school received a deviation for an unlicensed Class 8 teachers for this 1 year of the data that's already been gathered for 25-26. Please stand for any questions you might have.
Questions or comments? Go ahead.
Thank you.
Members.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My only comment is gratitude. Thank you to OPI for bringing this forward. Thank you for looking out and protecting our school districts. Some of them that were concerned about this, as it has become just a bigger thing. So I just want the board to know, this was actually brought to us by OPI, when we were having discussions on the licensure committee about, oh, we probably will need to do something like this to help the school districts. And I know OPI a lot of times doesn't always feel the love on that end of things. So, so I just want to share gratitude for you bringing it forward. I am fully supportive of this.
Other question, Member Schmidt?
Does this only apply to 1 year? Does this apply from now on?
There won't be a problem from now on.
Yeah, if.
Okay, okay, it's only this year.
Just to bridge the gap.
Because we're bridging got it. Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'm prepared to make a motion, Chair Clark.
Please do.
I move to approve waiving the efficiency deviation in ARM 10-55-605 for non-licensed or misassigned dual credit educators.
For the motion, is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second to approve waiving the deficiency deviation in 10-55-605 for non-licensed misassigned dual credit educators. Again, this is a look back to not penalize schools for using the Class 8s, which we are in the process of eliminating. Discussion, Member Rasmussen.
Does that motion need to include for the year 25-26 since that year is completed, so it's not assumed by those further down the road that you know didn't apply to 25-26 when that's intent? I'm just asking.
Director Quinn?
I would defer to you guys.
The page 337 of our board packet specifically says that the waiver is to remove the use of 25, 26 data, so it does say it in.
Yeah, but
In there in the motion.
You can restate the motion to say.
Yeah,
25,
Chair Neeskens, would you please restate your motion then? To include the
Yeah.
the 25, 26 data.
The restated motion is, I move to approve waiving the deficiency deviation in ARM 1055-605 for non-licensed or misassigned dual credit educators for the 25-26 school year.
Was there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Discussion. Thank you. Any other discussion? Any public comment? Any public comment online? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those. Motion carries. Trey's gonna please up.
Yes, so moving to item 27 in our packet on page 339, this is the action on reinstatement of accreditation status for reopening Basin Elementary School. However, I do note that the recommendation itself is also to approve the reopening of Basin Elementary School in addition to the reinstatement of the regular accreditation status. So Crystal, I believe you were here to present on that, and if you would just cover both the statute that is required to reopen and whether Basin has met that statute as well as the accreditation recommendation.
Right, Chair Tharp, Chair Neeskens, and members of the board. Yesterday I shared with you, and I think we're good and clear on why Basin is doing this. They did complete the whole process of 2024-25. So it is recommended by the superintendent for their request to reopen in 26-27. That they will participate in the cycle 3 and complete the full accreditation process in 2028-29. Because they are seeking reinstatement of their accreditation status. They've reached the final stage, which is final action that you would take as the board. Chair Neeskens, I'm not sure, I'm here just for accreditation, so I am not.
That's what I needed clarity on, because it's a little unclear on page 339 of our packet. It does say your recommendation would be to approve the reopening of Basin Elementary School and the reinstatement of their accreditation status, but just to be very clear, you're just requesting reinstatement of their accreditation status.
Chair Neeskens, correct.
Okay.
I apologize for that.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to ensure we were all on the same page, and I can support, I can make a motion to that effect. Is there any questions or comments?
Good clarity. Good clarity.
Seeing none, I am prepared to make a motion, Chair Tharp.
Please do.
I motion to approve reinstating Basin Elementary School's regular accreditation status.
For the motion, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second to approve reinstituting the accreditation status for Basin Elementary. Is there any discussion? Any public comment? Public comment online? Being none, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of approving the reinstatement of accreditation status for Basin Elementary, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Chair Neeskens, 28.
Thank you. Moving on to item 28 on page 340 of your board packet. This is the excuse me 1 second here. Action on the proposed procedures and schedules for reviewing the accreditation status of each school. I will turn it over to Crystal for more information.
Great, thank you, Chair Tharp, Chair Neeskens, and members of the board. This next act is an action item for the proposed procedures and schedules for reviewing the accreditation status of each school. Following presentations on the assurance standards in March and the student performance standards yesterday, the OPI is seeking formal action on the proposed accreditation process and schedules for the upcoming 3-year cycle. In your packet on page 342, you will see the complete criterion reference guide that maps out the process, status determinations, overview of the accreditation process for both the assurance and student performance standards, followed by the scoring rubrics for all 25 rubrics. As I mentioned, the approval of the process will be for the next 3 years. At the May 2025 board meeting, the groups were selected. More information on on the selections can be found on page 364 in your packet. For the 2026-27 accreditation process, the Mass regions chosen include North Central, Highline, Northeast, and Southeast. Any school that is in deficient status will also be required to complete the full process next year as well. I want to extend my sincere gratitude to the accreditation think tank one final time for their unwavering dedication and the countless volunteer hours that they invested in this process. Over the last 3 years, we have made incredible progress. I am immensely proud of what we have accomplished and excited to officially launch our 3-year cycles in just a few months. And with that, I stand for any questions.
Questions or comments for Crystal?
Member Rasmussen? Thank you, Chair Niskins, Mr. Chair. Again, Crystal, this is just, speaking as former superintendent, this is just really clear. I really like it. You know, gathers everything together in one spot, gives everybody, especially new practitioners, you know, really a good guide of what they're going to be accredited. Really appreciate it.
Board Member Rustin, if I may, I do want to, with the new leader, we heard at the last board meeting a recommendation, or maybe even with the subcommittee, about forming a new leader cohort. And we have actively already started the planning for that. So we have strategic planning with my team next month, where we're going to start diving into what that will look like, really break it down and how we can help support them with each rubric, and you know, focus in on those regions that are going in this next year, but anyone can attend. You know, if they want to kind of get a head start and learning about what's to come, anyone will be invited to it. So we are starting that work in the next few weeks.
I'm really glad.
Thank you.
Glad.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'm prepared to make a motion, Chair Tharp.
Please do.
I move to approve the proposed procedures and schedules for reviewing the accreditation status of each school.
For the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the proposed procedures and schedules for reviewing accreditation status of each school. Board member discussions. Feels like I've been working on this ever since I joined this board. One of the first things I ended up having to do was immediately made chair of the accreditation committee and going through that whole 55 process. And yeah, it is so gratifying to finally see this, and this is an excellent document. And it's been through a lot of pain and heartache and slings and arrows, but as noted earlier, everybody loves Crystal, even though they don't show it at all times. So we appreciate all of your continued work on this. This is a great instrument, a great tool, and it was a heavy lift, and I appreciate that.
Thank you, Chair.
Any further discussions? Any public comment? Dr. Watson? Making up for not saying a word yet. Thank you.
Fun voice.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the board again. Real quick, just a huge thank you to OPI and their team for putting together the think tank, allowing us to participate. I do think it's a much better process than it was 2 years ago. The rubrics are much better. So appreciate everything that Crystal has done and her team to sort of work with us. We had some, dare I say, strong personalities on the think tank, and I know those meetings were not always easy, and I appreciate OPI sticking with us and Crystal and her team. On the note of new leaders, I was going to bring this up later, but it's appropriate now. We're tracking currently 48 to 50 new principals in the state, and we haven't got the numbers yet from the AA's. So I imagine when we do, we're going to be close to 70 new principals across the state. This is a huge turnover year for school principals, not so much for school superintendents, but for school principals. We do know principals are engaged in the pieces of the accreditation process. So really looking forward to working with Crystal and her team on the new leader stuff. We have a summer conference in July, and I've asked Crystal to do a session after the conference with the superintendents and the principals in those regions that are up next year. So we'll advertise that as well, as sort of a work session after the conference is over for anybody in those regions. So just wanted to say thank you to OPI and their team, and we look forward to helping get this implemented.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. And on behalf of the county superintendents, this document provides clarity since many of them are not practitioners. Many of them are rolled into other offices, and there's honestly not a lot of us who are superintendents. So this provides a clarity for a layperson to be able to help figure out the process as well. Thank you. Any other public comment? Any public comment online? All right, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Chair Neeskens, 29.
Thank you. This item is action on the accreditation status for deficient and certain advice schools for the 2025 to 2026 school year. And with that, I will turn it over to Crystal.
Thank you, Chair Neeskens, Chair Tharp. So my final agenda item today is the 2025-26 Montana Accreditation Status Report for schools who participated in the process this year. So before you today is the 2025-26 Montana Accreditation Status Report. You should have received a link separate from your packet as it contains embargoed information. Hopefully you have the report in front of you. This report is the culmination of the annual accreditation cycle, which began when the accreditation submission form opened in October 2025 and will conclude with this meeting today. Under ARM, Chapter 1055-606, the categories of accreditation for the school are determined using a combination of assurance standards and student performance standards. It is important to remember that we accredit by school, not by district or school system. Those accreditation categories or statuses that are defined in 1055-605 are either regular with minor deviation, advice, or deficiency, depending on the student performance data or assurance standards. Assurance standards are determined through a combination of data submitted through the Infinite Campus and district level submissions on individual questions. These were outlined in the criteria reference guide with rubrics to explain what constitutes a certain score in each section. The student performance data from the 2025-2026 school year was to be completed through the accreditation process on the individual school level. There was a set of questions and criteria for the score for the elementary and middle school, separate from high school. This again was outlined in the criteria and reference guide. You will notice that this report is much smaller than years past, a reminder that only schools who were in deficiency status at the conclusion of the 2024-25 school year were required to complete the full process this year. Schools who scored advice status for the 2024-25 school year were given the option to participate in the process. This was at the request of a school district who did not want to wait until their cycle year, which was 2028-29, to improve their status. 6 schools chose to do so and submitted this year. Looking at the table, you will see 15 schools who participated their accreditation status for the 2025-26, along with the next steps for each school. I'm going to start actually from the bottom of that table, if you don't mind, and provide a little more information since there are several things going on in this report. So I want to make it really clear for what it all means. So starting with 2 Eagle River schools, they did not participate in the accreditation process in 2024-25 and requested to be part of the process for this past year, 25-26. That is why you see the NA for last year's status along then with their 2025-26 status. So they completed the full process this past year to give them their accreditation status. The next 5 schools above 2 Eagle River were the schools who chose to participate in the process based on their accreditation status in 2024-2025. All of these 6 schools will move into the 3-year cycles with regular status. So it behooved them to participate. You know, they improved their scores and are now in regular status going into the cycle years. And the status, I don't know if you have color in front of you, I do not, but the main thing on that table is in the center, and on mine it's blue or like a shaded gray is the status for this year. Any school that was required to submit a corrective plan after the approval of the 2024-25 accreditation report was to submit evidence on the progress of their plan per the board's request. Stanford School and Junior High did not submit evidence on their corrective plan. For ARM 1055-6055, if a school is placed in advice status and fails to follow through with their corrective plans, they are downgraded to a deficiency status. This means that Stanford School and Stanford Junior High will have to complete the 2026-2027 accreditation process instead of in cycle 3, well, not instead, also in cycle 3 when they were scheduled to go. So they will be required to go coming school year, but that doesn't change their cycle. And please stop me at any time, Chair, if you want to, or I was just gonna keep going and then.
No, please continue.
Okay, the remaining schools were the schools that needed to complete the process due to their deficiency status for the 2024-2025 school year. Luster Christian High School improved their status to regular for the 2025-2026 school year and will now continue on to cycles. All 3 schools in Lame Deer received deficiency status for 2025-2026. Lame Deer School and Lame Deer 7A will enter the intensive assistance process due to scoring a deficiency status for 2 consecutive years. Lame Deer High School received advice status in 2024-2025. So this was their first year in deficiency status. So Lame Deer High School will be required to complete the full accreditation process during the 2026-2027 school year. So again, the elementary and middle school received deficient 2 years in a row and will enter intensive assistance. However, the high school did not receive deficiency last year. They were in advice. They received deficiency this year, so they will have to go again in the 2026-2027 school year. All 3 schools in Heartview maintained a deficiency status and will also enter the intensive assistance process. You can see student performance is why these 6 schools stayed in deficiency status or moved down from advice to deficiency. I have requested that the 3 districts who are in deficiency status be available for any questions that you may have. I'm not sure if they are, but I did request that, or I stand for any questions that the board may have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you for the overview. Appreciate the information. Any questions or comments?
I want to give a huge shout out to the schools that took it upon themselves to participate and to see the results of that. To move from advice to regular, okay, it's phenomenal, right? And it's because what they did, and for Luster to move from deficiency to regular is Herculean. And so I want school districts to understand that by doing this process, it does result in good work and good results. So I really want to compliment those school districts that were able to do that. And we're proactive in this whole direction.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'm prepared to make a motion, Chair Tharp.
Please do.
I move to approve the 2025-2026 accreditation status of the listed schools as recommended by the state superintendent.
For the motion, is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the accreditation statuses presented. Discussion. Do we have someone online? Okay, for public comment. Yeah, board member discussion? Public comment. Public comment online?
Victoria, you should be able to unmute now.
The left, there you go.
Okay, yeah, we're here. Can you hear us?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, we were just wondering, to us, it seemed like,
excuse me, who is this?
This is Victoria, the superintendent for Lame Deer Schools, and I have my team here, Courtney Small, she's the assessment and curriculum coordinator, and the high school, junior high school principal, Mr. Jolly, Mr. Matthew Jolly. So our question is on the accreditation status where we were identified for intense assistance. How does that, what is the scoring rubric for that? We're just kind of interested in knowing that because according to our records from beginning of school year to end of school year on our mass NWA assessments and our report card from ESSA, it looked like we're improving on our scores. And so is it just the assurances that we didn't have enough evidence to upload, or how is this scored?
And when I went through, excuse me, this is Courtney. When I went through the rubric for the accreditation and I looked at what we were scoring 1 and 2s on, is it the lack of evidence? Is it the evidence we presented? I guess we need a little more feedback there. Because when I looked at them, we have put things in process. And is it just because there wasn't enough gain, or was it the evidence that we submitted?
I'm assuming that OPI shared this information, has been in discussion with you prior to today. And so the questions that you have need to be addressed with the OPI as far as any deficiencies, progress being made, or not sufficient progress being made. And that honestly, that's not for this board to dig into that level of minutia to try to sort out. That's something that you need to work out with the OPI. All we get is the final report and recommendation from them. So we're not able to assist you with that.
Additionally, Victoria, the NWA MAPS is not the state assessment. The state assessment is MAST and the ACT. So the ACT for your high school, and then for grades 3 through 8, it is the MAST assessment. So those are of particular importance for you to look at, is those scores.
Yeah, we have the mass results. So this one is mass.
Yeah, I'm just you're gonna.
Yeah. So the mass assessment. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
You're gonna have to direct your questions to Crystal and her crew offline. That's
Okay.
not
All right.
what.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought this was the platform where we can share our information, but I'm sorry. And yes, we will direct our questions to OPI. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment?
Audio there.
Okay, all those in favor of the approving the accreditation status of schools as presented by the OPI, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right.
Thank you.
Anything else for us, Crystal?
I think that's it.
All right, thank you
Have a
so
good
much.
holiday weekend.
All right, thank you. All right, we will stand in recess until 11 a.m.
struggled this morning trying to figure out exactly what I would say. I'm not here to make any accusations or to disparage anything that's been worked on. I do want you to be aware that as you take these next steps and hopefully get to a decision at some point, there are several things I believe the board should be asking, and I'm going to share a few of those things with you. So again, these are questions, not responses, not trying to say what's working and what's not working. Simple questions that I think you should be considering. When you think about this process, I would ask, why are we considering this issue now? It's 3 years into this change of assessment. And then what about the science assessment? Will the board also approve that change? And if so, when would that happen? And the contract between OPI and New Meridian has already been signed. And if so, what was the role of the board in that process? Did OPI get any public comment before signing that contract? Has the board seen that contract? And how much money is Montana paying to New Meridian for that contract? Regarding the vendor, what do you know about this testing vendor? Have they been responsive to questions and concerns? Have they listened to the advice from the Technical Advisory Committee? And regarding the Technical Advisory Committee, who are they? How are they appointed? Who pays their salary? Do they get paid at all? Does that money come from OPI? Does it come from New Meridian? Are their meetings open to the public? Are they recorded? Could you ask to see the minutes of the Technical Advisory Committee? Would you be granted those minutes? Would that be important to your decision? Your arm, and it was pointed out yesterday, I appreciate the fact that your arm speaks to growth. You have to measure growth with the state assessment, and I appreciate that. And I guess the question I would ask, is there a growth measure currently in this MAST assessment? And if not, was a growth assessment considered when they designed and developed the assessment? You heard yesterday that OPI is going to roll out a growth model. And I'm excited for that. I would ask, what does it mean? What does it look like? How come we can't see it currently? When will it be presented to the board? Will OPI accept feedback on that growth model? And more importantly, will that growth model meet the requirements in your ARM? I think that's important before you make a decision. You've heard a lot about lost instructional time. I'm not going to dive into that because I think there's some other folks that are going to testify on that. But we heard yesterday that this particular assessment takes 1% of less than 1% of instructional time per year. I would ask, does that sound reasonable? That's 6 hours of total test time. Does that sound reasonable? Is that the feedback that you're hearing? If it only takes 6 hours, could we give the whole assessment in one day and be done with it? And don't forget about SBAC. We gave SBAC for many, many years. We were always told that the total test time for SBAC was 4.5 hours. So if that's true, how come it took us 2 weeks to give SBAC? I don't know a district that didn't take less than 2 weeks to give SBAC. Were we just giving the test wrong? Did we not understand how the assessment worked? It only took 4.5 hours. Makeup assessments were talked about yesterday as well. And the question that I would ask about makeups assessment, I guess just put yourself in a teacher's place. Let's say you have 4 kids that missed the assessment and they show up on the next day. Should you go ahead and give that assessment on the next day, or do you move forward with instruction and find another time? When does the teacher complete the makeups for those 4? Is it during lunch? Is it during recess? Is it during class time? At what point do you pause instruction for the rest of the class to complete the makeups? If there's 4 kids absent, if there's 5 kids absent, what about if there's 7? What's the tipping point when a teacher has to decide to pause the instruction? And what about if there's limited number of computers at the school? Do the other kids lose out access to those computers to do these makeups? And why didn't we hear about makeups during SBAC? Perhaps a 3-year assessment requires more opportunities and time for makeups. Yesterday, we heard about flexibility and number of test splits. We heard that if a student does not complete a makeup, then the OPI can still create a summative score at the end of the school year. So my question for the board is, how many test splits can a student miss and still get a summative score? What if they only took 4 out of the 12 tests? Could we still get a summative score? If you can miss some of the testlets and still get a score, do we need 12 testlets? Can we get by with 10 testlets? How about 6 testlets? What if a school decided to give just 6 testlets instead of 12? What would be the implications for that school? Would they lose their accreditation if they only gave 6 out of the 12 testlets? but the students still got a score. And if we're not experiencing the benefits of a through-year assessment, would OPI allow us to give all the testlets at the end of the year? Would that impact the summative score? And then regarding the new science assessment, it sounds like OPI will allow schools to give all the testlets at the end of the year for the science assessment. If that's true, then why can't we do that for ELA and math? Indian Education for All is a really big issue that I just want the board to be aware of. I believe that OPI and Board of Public Ed have recently reached a settlement agreement regarding a lawsuit that challenged lack of evidence of implementation of IEFA. I haven't seen the settlement, but my understanding is that there was a settlement reached. So just knowing that's an important issue for OPI and Board of Public Ed, how much do we know about the incorporation of IEFA and math assessment? Yesterday, we heard that there will be incorporation of IEFA into the assessment. Is this the first time the board has heard of that? And was a consideration of IEFA part of the contract with New Meridian? Was IEFA considered in the original test development? If you go online right now on OPI, there are many development documents publicly available. There's a technical manual, there's a mass theory of action, there's New Meridian's assessment blueprint for both ELA and math. Do any of these documents mention IEFA in the test development? If not, how come? And if we are creating IEFA elements in ELA, I would strongly encourage the board to consider these questions. Were tribal educators involved in the assessment design? Were Indigenous perspectives included in fairness and sensitivity reviews of all test questions? Were Montana tribal communities consulted regarding the representation and assessment elements? Were items of context evaluated for cultural authenticity and relevance? Was there intentional alignment between the assessment blueprints and IEFA integration standards? And then validity and reliability. In a meeting in Missoula that I attended, we heard that the MAST assessment is not yet valid. And I understand that these assessments take a few years before they're valid. And if that's true, I think the board should ask, when will it be valid? And if it's not valid today, how do we use these scores? Should the scores be used to make accreditation decisions if it's not valid? Can the assessment be used to make instructional decisions? For example, can we use this assessment to determine which math class the student should be placed in when they enter high school? What about scheduling decisions? Should we use the score to decide if a kid needs to stay in at recess for extra help? What about IEP decisions? Should we use the score as part of a collection of data to make a determination about a potential learning disability? If it's not valid, should we wait before we make these decisions? How long do we have to wait? Let's see. And then I guess the other two items can wait. I have 4 pages of questions that I believe the board should think about and consider before you make this decision. I'm happy to share those questions with the OPI and the board, but I appreciate your time. Last thing I would say is just how the importance of this decision and how I want you to think about all of these issues before you make a final decision. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. Other public comment? Ms. Popham.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Again, for the record, my name is Kim Popham, spelled P-O-P-H-A-M, Director of Public Policy and Research for the Montana Federation of Public Employees. On behalf of MFPE educators, I'd like to echo some of the things that Dr. Watson spoke about, and he raises some very good points. I have heard from our teachers across the state. If I say the word masked, there's this cringe on their face. And I know that OPI is working very hard to try and meet their needs, but our students are suffering. A friend of mine posted something on Facebook the other day about, I'm bribing my students that they only have one more test, and then there's one more test, and then there's one more test after it. And she said, you know, our students are test tired. And I appreciate the work that is going into this, but I really want to make sure that we're remembering our purpose, as Dr. Watson said, and making sure that our students and our teachers are able to have the resources that they need to meet the needs of our students. And the test is not doing what it is supposed to be doing. I'm grateful. I reached out to OPI. We have scheduled some time at the educator conference to help our educators who are attending that conference to learn how to use the reports and how to administer the test to the best of their ability. So we're not taking that time away from our students. Our teachers, and especially in our small schools where you don't have a testing coordinator, those teachers are chasing kids down the hallway to try and make up those tests. And that is impacting learning time for those students. And so I am hearing that one of the most sad things that I heard is that these tests are taking the joy out of teaching. And they're taking the joy out of learning, where our students are coming in with those little kids that are curious about things, and teachers don't have time to answer those curiosity questions because they feel rushed to finish the curriculum so they can meet those test lids. I know you've heard it all. You had a letter from us, from our AA presidents, but I feel like I would be remiss in not mentioning that it's something that I am hearing consistently from the field. I know we have to have tests. I know that this is a necessary evil part of teaching. And I hope that we all continue to work together to make this, if we're going to keep this test, to make it usable for our educators and to help our students learn. Thank you so much for your time and work on this issue. And as always, I stand ready to help.
Thank you, Ms. Paul. Other public comment? Any public comment online?
Sarah Cole, you should be able to unmute.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for allowing me this public comment. My name is Sarah Cole. I'm an assistant superintendent for the Kalispell schools. I also want to thank the OPI assessment team. I know that they've been taking so much feedback and trying to do their best to advocate for a meaningful system for us. I just wanted to share a little bit about Kalispell's experience. We have been so grateful for the Transformational Learning Grant. We have been hyper-focused on defining proficiency aligned with Chapter 55 and really creating learning progressions for our students, finding a body of evidence to demonstrate proficiency aligned to an MTSS model. So screeners, diagnostic data, curriculum-based measures, and quick, valid, and reliable formative assessments. Unfortunately, as many folks have mentioned, the mass data at this point is not proving reliable, timely. In fact, it's just putting huge stressors on students and staff. One of the flexibilities that we would be requesting, if at all possible, is to be able to align the testlets, open up the window, provide the flexibility to align the testlets to our learning progression as outlined in Chapter 55. We've got a year-to-glance learning progression, and if we could open up some flexibility for those testlets to be administered at times that align with our learning progression and year-to-glance, it would make testing so much more meaningful. I'm not in the classroom setting. I hear about it all the time, so I'd like to just take a moment to read some information that was shared from me from an instructional coach who gets to serve at 2 elementary schools, Elrod and Russell. I, for a moment, thought I shouldn't read this. It's a really long email, but if I could just count up the number of hours I've spent responding to teacher stress this year, it would probably quadruple me reading this email. So I'm going to share it because I think it's really, really important. Teachers at Elrod and Russell, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide feedback regarding mass testing. I want to be very honest and direct because teachers, interventionists, special education staff, instructional coaches, and students are completely burnt out from testing. At this point, the process is negatively impacting both instruction and student learning across classrooms. I have gathered feedback from teachers from the past few years. I understand the intent, spreading testlets throughout the year with a teach, test cycle. However, the required testing windows are creating the exact opposite effect in classrooms. Having to complete 3 to 5 testlets within each designated window significantly reduces instructional flexibility and forces teachers to test students before content has been adequately taught. If there were no rigid testing windows, teachers could provide strong tier 1 instruction, teach at an appropriate pace, and assess students when they're actually ready. Teachers would still complete all 12 testlets by the end of the year, but the timing would align with the real instruction and student readiness rather than artificial deadlines. Every district in Montana operates differently. Schools have different calendars, start dates, 4-day weeks, early release schedules, holiday breaks, all of the above. A one-size-fits-all testing schedule does not reflect the realities of instruction across the state. Teachers should be trusted as professionals to determine when students are ready to demonstrate their learning after content has actually been taught. Right now, students are often taking testlets on standards they have never learned, yet simply because schools are required to complete a certain number of testlets within the window. Teachers are telling students, just try your best. We haven't learned this yet. Students are crying during testing because they are frustrated and confused. They want to do their best knowing it is a state test and it matters. It's heartbreaking and unfair to our students. Regarding test time, the number presented to the board do not reflect classroom realities. When thinking about instructional time, it is important to look beyond the reported minutes per individual testlet and consider the reality of what happens in classrooms. Students complete 19 assessments throughout the year, 12 math testlets, 7 ELA, in addition to the anchor testlet. In a departmentalized setting, a single testing session often consumes the majority of instructional time for that subject area that day. Even if an individual student's test only records 30 to 40 minutes, the actual impact includes setup, transitions, troubleshooting, waiting for a student to finish, interruptions from late arrivals, and the inability to continue meaningful instruction while testing is taking place. The claim that each testlet takes only 30 to 40 minutes is not accurate in practice. A single testing session typically takes a minimum of 60 minutes and often much longer. Teachers must wait for all students to finish before instruction can resume. Some classes take 90 to 120 minutes to complete various testlets. For example, a class may begin testing at 9 a.m. Some students may finish their testlet in 30, 40 minutes, which is the only data the state sees. However, if a student arrives late while testing is already taking place, that student still needs to begin and complete the assessment. While the state may record each student individually as only taking the 30 to 40 minutes, the reality is that the classroom remained in a testing environment from 9 to 10:30 or longer. During that entire time, instruction is essentially paused. The data may show how long individual students spent actively taking the test, but it does not capture the actual disruption to the classroom, the extended loss of instructional time, transitions, interruptions, waiting periods, and the reality teachers are managing throughout the day. Additionally, there is significant preparation time that is not accounted for. Teachers must prepare testing environments and remove or cover instructional materials. Students require login support, directions, transitions, and troubleshooting. Classes lose momentum before and after testing. Instructional groups and interventions are canceled during test periods because that FTE is shifted towards supporting with testing, particularly around accommodations. Separate settings, one-on-one support, read aloud accommodations, frequent breaks, and extended time. The makeup process creates an entirely separate layer of frustration and lost instructional time. I could go on and on. I think at her closing, she said right now many educators feel unheard throughout this process. Those working directly with students every day should have a meaningful voice in redesigning the system. The current structure prioritizes compliance and testing schedules over authentic instruction and accurate data. I strongly urge OPI to reconsider the current masked model and rebuild the process alongside classroom educators. Teachers want meaningful data. We want accountability. Most importantly, we want assessments that accurately reflect student learning rather than assessments driven by calendar windows and compliance pressures. At this time, the system is clearly causing significant frustration for students and staff and is taking away from quality instruction across schools. I appreciate you listening to the public comment I provided today, and I would ask if we could choose one thing to change, it would really be creating flexibilities for when those testlets are administered so that we can align them in meaningful ways to instruction. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Cole. Any other public comment?
Jen Stein should be able to unmute and speak now.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. My name is Jen Stein. I am the principal at Edgerton Elementary School in Kalispell, Montana. And I also have with me Brad Nickenen, who is a 4th grade teacher who primarily focuses on math at our school. And so I'd like to start with him because I do agree that the most important voice is the voice of the teacher. So I would like to let him start.
Thanks, you guys. Yeah, like Jen said, my name is Brad Nickenen. Boy,
Sarah summed that up so well. I actually am guilty of being the one that's emailed Sarah a lot this year. So sorry about taking so much time there, Sarah. But I want to start with, like, I actually really believe in this test. Like, when Montana rolled this out, I was like, yes, this is perfect because it's broken down into small segments. It's what we want. But then when we're locked into these windows, that's where it just doesn't work. It really doesn't work. And so, to reiterate what Sarah was saying, if we could just have the flexibility to schedule these when works with our curriculum, that's going to really solve a lot of the problems. As far as absent students, the time it takes to take the tests, all those things are just real things. Those aren't going to go away. Those issues are going to still be there. The amount of tests I feel like could be trimmed down. I'm only one teacher, one fourth grade math teacher, but I would be curious what the committee would think about lumping some of the assessments together. So just speaking about math only, our computation tests could be grouped together. The way I teach math with our curriculum is multiplication followed by division. I feel like we could clump that together. That would be one test instead of 2 or 3 separate tests. Same thing in fractions. There are 4 different sessions where maybe if we group them together, maybe limit some of the questions, that might decrease some of the sessions that we're needing to offer to students. I think just the sheer number of tests is the biggest problem, right? I counted 12 fourth grade math and then 8 ELA writing, and then the anchor test at the end. So that's 20 tests that our fourth graders have taken this year. And that's not including what we do with our curriculum and then also district testing that is being done alongside that. So that's where the teachers are feeling the biggest frustration, is just the sheer number of hours that it takes to test. So if I count that up, that's about 20 days of instruction out of my math that would just be for math this year. So that's kind of where I'm coming from as a classroom teacher. I'm sure there's lots of questions, but I just wanted to give you a little anecdotal record there of how it's been going.
And I, again, this is Jen, I'm the principal here. Just as far as structuring it, you know, we're a pretty large school. We have resources, we have a conference room, we have an instructional coach who spends probably, I think they said, about 25 hours trying to do makeup sessions or small group sessions. My resource teachers have to pause what they're doing to make sure every kid gets their accommodation. And so I feel like when we're just kind of jamming it in there, we're not getting a true measurement of what kids can do, because we can't optimize when and where we are always giving these assessments. To reach that 95% threshold when we're already kind of going against all the things in education where we're worried about absenteeism, but it's really hitting those kids that are most at risk, and they are the ones that are probably suffering the most. Because they can't always get to school and we're trying to fill them in. And it really is impacting special ed in a particular way, because they are also responsible for meeting every kid's minutes while they are also trying to make sure they provide the appropriate assessment. Assessment is, like, I support Brad. We want to know what to do with our instruction. When it's just something we got to check off the list, it is not good for kids and teachers. And so I just want to urge you to listen to people like Brad and have them come alongside developing it, because truly they want what's best for kids. And I think that's the most important thing, to see how they learn and grow. So thank you very much for your time and for listening to us and knowing that we want to help solve a problem, because it's a good start. We just want to work hard to make sure it's appropriate.
Thank you, Ms. Stein. Is there other public comment?
Thank you. Any other comments here in the room?
Madam
Yes.
Chair, if I may, thank you so much. The OPI appreciates this feedback from our teachers, from those in our school districts, from our partners across the state. And we would just like the opportunity to respond to a couple of these comments. The superintendent herself has said that when she was here on the board and she was in the field, she did have concerns about the massed assessment, and that we have worked very closely with Dr. Mergel and her team to address these concerns. And we just want to take a moment to say that we have answers to the concerns that are presented here today. We would be more than happy to sit down with any of our partners, as we've done with the assessment subcommittee, with Dr. Watson, with other people across the state. And we have heard those concerns and we have taken the time to listen to them. We just want to mention a couple of key points of data that was brought up yesterday that we think is important to highlight. We do believe that parents and community members should be involved in these conversations, as well as teachers and educators across the state. We do want to highlight that the portal for parents is being, utilized actively by 35% of our districts statewide. We'd like to capture that completely and provide professional development to our teachers, to our educators, and to our administrators on how to best meet the needs of those parents, because we know that when parents are clued into the scores of their students, that they can spend the time at home to address those concerns. We've heard that from members from people across the state, like I've said. The items on the culturally inclusive part, the OPI prides itself on including our tribal representatives at every stage of our processes here. I serve as the Macy representative for the superintendent's office. That is a very important part of not only our assessment team and our assessment work, but our work in total across the state. And we'd be happy to discuss that. Of course, we cannot show items that are on the test that include that culturally responsive items, right? That would be showing test items to those that can't. But we want to let you know that that is a very important part, and that is an especially important part to Superintendent Hedlund, who has done that work across the state. We have included educators in many different parts. You saw that timeline of where we are in your board packet. I can't remember the page, and I'm really sorry for that, but it had the little stars of where educators have been included in every part of this process. I had the opportunity to go to standard setting last year and meet with Montana educators recently at our assessment gathering that Executive Director Flynn and Dr. Watson have brought up, and Ms. Popham was there, of course, from MFPE. Educators were in that room. And I'm just going to share a really quick personal story. I sat with an educator from a school in Missoula, and she looked me in the eye and she said, "You do not know how important and good it feels to know that you are listening to me, that you are actively engaging in this conversation. And it makes me feel as though the OPI is making those steps in the right direction." I think that shows where we are. We want to create professional development, and we are in the works in creating professional development that actually actually actively includes educators learning on how to tie the standards to their instruction and to this assessment. So we are continually working on it. I appreciate Dr. Mergel and her team so much and the active work that they are doing. I know Superintendent Hedlund does as well. We are open to any conversation that any of our partners across the state would like to have. Those of us in the room and those of us who have joined online, we once again appreciate your comments.
Thank you. Another comment?
Yeah, that's what I thank you, no problem.
So,
Well, yes.
and I don't wanna go back and forth, but it's not 35% of parents involved. On page 253 of your own report to the board, 35% of districts are using the portal. 4% of parents in those districts are using the portal, so one of my future questions will be, focused on how do we get more parents engaged in that? Yeah, that number is not correct.
Madam Chair, thank you for the correction on that, Vice Chair Slinger. I appreciate that.
Board Member Rasmussen.
Just a couple of comments. I did a lot of scribbling. Thank you, Dr. Watson, and thank you for your comments, and thank you for those online. I really appreciate those. There's just so many things, that are being commented on. Some of them are not unique to this test. They're just unique to the testing, idea of testing, the messiness of cleaning up. I mean, as a teacher, I can tell you about the messiness of cleaning up and doing makeup tests, which is why I always had two versions of the test. A lot of those things are just common. So it's incumbent upon us to separate out, the messiness of testing and all that kind of stuff from things that are particular to this test. And those seem to be things revolving around, you know, the windows, which I thought gave a lot of flexibility, but we're seeing that maybe don't. The number of test items, the number of individual tests, the word test used over and over again. I think we need to invent a new word here, and that would solve half of our problems. Those kinds of things. That doesn't mean that there are no problems, Mr. Chair. I want to reiterate that. And I know yesterday we were just getting into it. Cedar, the last section was talking when we ran out of time, about the growth that you're building in. And I, for one, think that that's going to be kind of important. You know, what does that mean? Does that mean individual student growth? Does that apply to classrooms? You know, what does growth mean? Because in ARM, it says, program delivery standards will provide an integrated approach to inform student learning, progression, growth, and proficiency. That's student learning, student growth. And I'm sure that OPI is well aware of that. Those are the things that we have to consider. I don't even know, since we don't have that growth model right now, and if you add it, do you have to come back and get another okay from us? Because it says no recommended modifications are effective and no accredited schools may implement modifications. Do you have to come back and get, you know, new approval once you put a growth component in? Every time they change or modify the test, does that have to come? There's a lot of questions in here. But I think, Mr. Chair, our role is kind of outlined specifically, and that is and it's outlined here. We are to approve or disapprove the modifications. We're not to be involved in, we need to hear about it so we know whether those modifications are working. But that is not our job, you know, 5 feet, 10 feet, 30 feet is not our job. Our job is more like 30,000 feet. And so.
Thank you. All right. Once again, the motion is the action on listing the recommendation of modifications, single system and statewide assessment for math and English language arts as an action item at our next meeting, which we're looking at doing a remote meeting sometime in June. Any other public comment? Dr. Neeson.
I would just ask that if there's any information that has not already been presented to the board before we make this decision, that OPI be allowed to do so. If we did talk about how we rushed a little bit the presentation yesterday, I don't want us going into this situation without all the information we need. And so is there any information that we skipped yesterday that we need to have?
Madam Chair, if I may. Member Neeskens, I do just want to highlight, student reports are showing strong support of the 3-year model. I can't release this most recent year's reports, and I believe we'll hear in July what that student reporting is, but we are seeing a trend of very positive student reports, and last year it was close to about 78%.
Is there the possibility of seeing this report before we make a decision on the test? Because seeing it in July won't be helpful if we don't have a test.
Madam Chair, Member Neeskens, I would need to ask our assessment team and Dr. Merkel if that would be possible, but I'm not quite sure the answer to that one. Yes. Yes.
Other public comment? All right.
I have a question that I'd like some information before our next meeting. That's what would happen if we didn't have windows, if we eliminated the testing windows? Just let teachers choose when they want to give the test.
I see.
I would love to have I would love to have.
Let them, okay, they are here to hear that question, so let's have them plan on presenting that at the next meeting.
Thank you.
All right, the motion on the floor is to take action on this at a next meeting. Any further board member discussion or public comment? Dr. Neeson?
I would just like to say, I know there was feedback from the students, but there was also a survey that went out to staff and other stakeholders, parents, I forwarded it to my teachers, filled it out, had my principals fill it out, parents fill it out. I would like to see all of that feedback.
Madam Chair, if I may. Yes, thank you. Sorry, I was directing it to member Rasmussen. Yes, we can share that. And then we are also looking into administrator surveys as well to receive perspective from like you and other members who are superintendents.
Any other comments? All those in favor of the motion, which once again is to take action on listing the superintendent's recommendations to modifications to statewide system of assessment for math and English language arts as an action item at the next meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. All right. We have one more agenda item left. We're going to do that at the very end. For the public, and what we'll do is our executive director's performance evaluation. What we will do at the conclusion of the meeting is that we will go into closed session to do that evaluation, and then we will exit closed session for the sole purpose of adjourning the meeting. So let's take care of everything else up before that. McCall, future agenda items.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our next meeting is next regular meeting is July 22nd through the 24th in Helena. 22nd, we'll do strategic planning, so you can expect that to be most of the day, which is Wednesday. 23rd is when our regular meeting will convene. We'll do some time with Macy in a joint meeting, and then we'll have regular items that you can see on the agenda. Mr. Chair, it is also the Helena Stampede, so please pack your rodeo gear. I'm hoping that we can take the rodeo gear.
Well, that'd be fun.
And if you really want to punish yourself, come a couple of days early and hang out with me at the Capitol, because we have school funding intermission on Monday and Tuesday prior to that.
Correct.
So I got to wear a suit all 5 days.
You're gonna have to get an apartment in Helena.
Yeah, all right. This time, any other public comment?
I'm sorry, general.
General public comment.
Sorry. I'll be quick. I know you have another item. For the record, Rob Watson, School Administrators Montana, a couple of things. I know that you have an opportunity to evaluate your executive director, and I know you're not taking public comment on that, but I'm going to give you some anyway. I've worked with McCall now for several years, even before I was in this role, and she's one of the best I've worked with and the best I've seen. She's grown over the years. She's very good at collaboration, but she's also great at pushing back on my ideas and thoughts. And I think that shows true professionalism, and I just appreciate all the work that she does, and I hope you do as well. So from the field, I can strongly say that School Administrators Montana supports McCall in her work, and hope that you do as well. Okay, two other things. I promise this is it. So we have a summer conference coming up. I'm sorry, I only made 10 copies of these, so maybe you could share. And a couple of things that I already mentioned. We are having a session related to new leaders. But we have lots of other stuff happening at the conference. We've moved the conference this year to Carroll College. We're excited about that. We have a special rate. If you'd like a room in one of the dorms, you can stay in the dorms. Maybe McCall can show you where her dorm was. That's an option. But we also have a special $99 rate for one day only. On the first day, we've got a pre-conference around proficiency-based learning, and then some leadership stuff. So if you're interested in that one day rate on the first day, it's the 27th through the 29th of July. We are diving deep into what do I want to call it? Food to school program, or what are they called? Farm to table. We have Old Salt. Many of you know about the Old Salt Cooperative. They're providing a meal one night for us. The one I'm most excited about, if you know Marie Gladstone. She is a recent person on the Food Channel's Chopped. She's from Montana. She's created an entire program that she wants to bring to schools called Indigikitchen, where she does some indigenous cooking. She's gonna give an indigenous demonstration, indigenous cooking demonstration on one of the sessions, so we're really excited to host Marie Gladstone as well. We are offering in one of our efforts to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our new principals. We're offering a half off for any new principal to attend the entire conference, or any inspired administrators. So I'm excited about this conference. I welcome the board to attend any and all of it. We will find a spot for you, and we are just encouraged for you to see what's going on in terms of leadership in our public schools. The last thing I'm going to share, and I do have more copies of this, so hopefully I'll have enough, but some exciting news that we have gathered in the last week or so. So if you didn't know, there's a research lab, and it's out of the University of Texas, and it's called the Superintendent Lab. I know, don't Google it, it sounds really boring, but it gathers a lot of research around school superintendents. We have participated in that research. A couple of graphs and maps I want to show you from the Superintendent Lab. If you want to dive into these interactive maps or graphs, just follow that link to the superintendentlab.com. You take a look at the bottom one. This is the percentage of turnover from 2019 to 2026. A few years there that we were really concerned. If you look at the dotted line, that's the national turnover data. The solid line is the Montana turnover data, and we were definitely concerned for a few years there. It appears at least the trend is towards more of what the national data shows. So hopefully the turnover is slowing down a little bit for principals. I'm sorry, for superintendents. On the back side is a map that shows something that I think a lot of us have overlooked, and something that I think we just need to pay attention to. By the way, the reason that this is important is if you take a look at our entire teaching staff across the country, about 75% of teachers are female. But on the reverse, if you look at leadership among our schools across the country, anywhere from 30 to 34% of leaders are female. So it's something that we've been watching in our association. We've done a couple of programs to encourage it. There's also a program at University of Montana. If you were not aware, Erica Allen started a female cohort leadership program at University of Montana. What I'm going to tell you here is we're starting to see some things turn around that honestly are the best in the country. So you'll see that map. You see we're pretty dark green on that. 54% in 25-26, 54% of our superintendents across the state were female. And you can look at that interactive map online. That's the highest in the country. There is no other state that has 54% of their superintendents as female. California is a close second, and I believe they were in the mid-40s. So that's something to be encouraged. This can change really quickly, just as superintendents turnover. That's something for us to watch. But we are doing some work in that area. We have a group that's working on a collaboration between the Mountain West states called Women Leading the West. We have a group of folks in our state working on that collaboration. So we're excited about that data. Love to see that stay the same. At our fall conference, we're going to do a post-conference for female leaders in our state. And then, of course, the bottom one just shows you the percent change over the 2019 to 2026, 26% increase in female leadership. The very last thing I'll say is, and I mentioned this earlier, we're expecting a turnover of maybe 70 principals in our state. So one thing that we watch really carefully is the pipeline and where these folks are getting trained. And again, this might be a future agenda item. If you didn't know this, Montana State University, the Ed Leadership Department at Montana State University has again received the iLead grant. This is a grant that is directly targeted at Native American leaders in our state. There are 23 or 25 of those Native American leaders that have joined that cohort, which starts this summer. So those are future school leaders in our state, serving Indigenous communities. I know that you talked about a couple of the communities that are in intensive need in your accreditation process, and it's encouraging that we're starting to build that pipeline again of Indigenous leaders. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate allowing public comment.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. Any other public comment on general items? All right, seeing none, once again, this board is gonna go into executive session for the purpose of evaluating our executive director. And then for the public, we are immediately following that executive session, we will adjourn. And then we will have a work session this afternoon where we are gonna continue with our strategic planning, work with the assistance of NASB. So at this point, ask the room to be cleared and we will go into executive session.